Bullhorn Betty rocks.
Well, come on in, TGIF, to my beautiful beans.
Fives on the table. We clocking early, hunt what's unstable. Bullhorn Betty on the curb, voice raised. Flip-flop queen with the homemade phrase. Notebook thick, got the screenshots flag. Names in red ink, every rumor, every tag. Late night live stream, screen glow on her face. Truth in her throat, got a lawman's pace. She don't blink when the threats roll through. Come see me, she says, if you think that's cute. Bullhorn Betty in the coffee club. We hunt bad guys till the sun comes up. From the front porch steps to the courthouse rug. We fighting for the ones that they gave up. Bullhorn Betty in the coffee club. Sip that truth from a styrofoam cup. From the quiet streets to the madhouse buzz. We ain't letting go till we get that justice. Insane Asylum, that's our crew nickname. Laugh so loud while we track these names. Whiteboard wild with the webs we spin. Pen to pen, see the pattern sink in. Turmo shaking when the case goes cold. We stir it back up, won't do what we're told. Doorstep question, side eye stare. Where were you that night? We hanging right there. Bullhorn Betty in the coffee club. We hunt bad guys till the sun comes up. From the front porch steps to the courthouse rug. We fighting for the ones that they gave up. Bullhorn Betty in the coffee club. Sip that truth from a styrofoam cup. From the quiet streets to the madhouse buzz. We ain't letting go till we get that justice. This for the faces on the milk cart labels. This for the families praying at tables. This for the names that the news won't say. We say them out loud every single day. Every day. If you're running in the dark, better feel that fear. Betty got a bullhorn right in your ear. Coffee club crazy, but we think so clear. One small town, whole world gonna hear. Hey! Bullhorn Betty in the coffee club. We hunt bad guys till the sun comes up. From the front porch steps to the courthouse rug. We fighting for the ones that the day gave up. Bullhorn Betty in the coffee club. Sip that truth from a styrofoam cup. From the quiet streets to the madhouse buzz. We ain't letting go till we take red
beautiful coffee beans. We're about to start this TGIF morning. Happy Friday, April the 10th. On Bullhorn Betty, we're covering the case of Nancy Guthrie, among other things. We've got a few other topics that we're going to be talking before we dive into our topic of conversation of Nancy Guthrie. However, we've been covering this case since it was breaking news. I believe February 2nd, February 3rd, breaking news. We started breaking this case before we even knew about Savannah Guthrie. And this case has just kind of taken a life of its own. It's had a lot of problems, a lot of problems with the investigation, a lot of internal squabbles with the law enforcement bodies that are working together. We've had a media circus out there. We've had, law enforcement violating creators' rights for the benefit of a community. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Public roadway is public roadway. Everybody must adhere to the laws. Nobody is above the law. Nobody gets special privileges or treatment. And they are treating this community when there's no media out there like there once was. And now they're harassing the little bit of people that are out there. And I'm going to start filing complaints against the law enforcement body out there for harassment. From what I'm seeing, it's straight up harassment of media out there. You cannot do that. There is nobody violating the law except law enforcement, and that's the way it's been. So we are going to start handling this. We're going to start picking up the phones and calling Pima County Sheriff and making their phones ring, because we're sick and tired of them picking on social media or media that's out there covering this case. They have every right to cover this case. We're all about treating people fairly across the board. That community doesn't get any special treatments. Those are public roadways. That means the federal and state people and community and the county have paid for those roadways. So they have no authority to tell who can use those roadways or anything of that. Even the HOA does not have the rules over the roadways. Those were not, they're more than welcome to buy those roadways from the county and start maintaining those roadways. The HOA has every opportunity and right to purchase those roadways. Millions and millions and millions of dollars of roads through that HOA. They're more than welcome to purchase it and turn them into private roads. That's their choice. They've chosen to keep them public roads. They have no authority to tell people who can use those roads. Okay? And any law enforcement that is sitting there enforcing and threatening to arrest people for utilizing those roadways properly in a community where they can stop and are allowed to, and you've got a station, you can't go out there and find the person that abducted this woman out of her bed, but you sure can station an officer to roll up on people in an instant out there in this community because a few people call. Well, if you really want to play that, we can make your phones light up the opposite way if you really want them to. You do not want to play with social media. I keep trying to tell Pima County Sheriff's Department, quit screwing around. So what are we going to do now? We're probably going to start campaigning. We're probably going to start activating. We're probably going to start doing some activist work. And that means making phone calls all day, all night, sending emails, sending letters to their department, just doing everything just to be a boil on the ass of these people if they keep wanting to be the boil on the ass of us. Two can play at this game, and two can play at this game lawfully and legally. You're being a violation of law. I will be doing and acting within the law. Let's just be very clear. Pima County, you need to stop with your monkey bull crap out there. You're making yourselves look worse. From a perspective of us, the world, you're making yourself look worse. You're making yourself look like no matter what, you guys are going to dictate the law, whether it's lawful or legal. You cannot violate people's laws and rights to protect somebody else's laws and rights. Those are public roadways. Again, the HOA has every opportunity to take millions of their HOA fees and purchase those roads, put up gates, and make sure that nobody is coming into their community. But while they're public roadways, you are violating people's rights. You are violating people's rights, Pima County. You are violating people's rights. And you need to start sticking up to your residents and saying, look, they have every right to do this. There's nothing we can do about it. Why don't you start telling them the truth? There's nothing you can do about it because we have rights as media. And I think it's time for you to start sticking up for those rights before those rights start biting you in your ass a lot worse than they've already done. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Bullhorn Betty, and we've been dealing with a lot of chaos and animosity out there that is brought on by some of the residents out there, unnecessarily creating havoc because they feel they're entitled to. You are not entitled to do anything. Again, neighbors, you purchase your property. That roadway has nothing to do with anything that you purchased. HOA, you don't get special benefits either. If that's public roadway, it's public roadway. People need to learn their laws, understand, and push back. So what I think we need to do is get an attorney. I really do. I think we need an attorney out there. I think we need an attorney. I think we need to purchase an attorney for the content creators out there. I want to get an attorney out there to make sure they have a right to do whatever they want. And I want to start recording the harassment from Puma County law enforcement so we can start a civil suit, right? These people don't understand what they're not allowed to do until you start taking them to court and start making them spend real money after they've already pissed away their taxpayers' money. I'm pretty sure the neighbor that's creating all this chaos is going to be on the shit list of a lot of people in that community if we strategically do this, okay? So, lady, I don't know who the hell you are, but you do not want to play with Bullhorn Betty. I will turn your life upside down lawfully and legally. If anybody knows who this neighbor is, send me her information. Send me her information. And lady, I will tell you publicly right here, you don't want to play with Bullhorn Betty. I've tried to explain to the people out there, you guys are very, very fortunate with the people you have out there, how respectful they are. I don't deal with public the way that these people deal with public. Okay, lady? Because you come up talking smack to me, I'm going to send you home crying to your mommy. And if your mommy's rolling over in her grave, well, that's where she's going to be. If that's offensive, welcome to the Bullhorn Betty channel. All right, guys, we have some not so good news. So yesterday in California, Porterville, California, this is awful. This was a chaotic scene. A detective, Randy Hoppert, I just want to say, God rest his soul. We lost a Tulare County, I think I'm pronouncing that county correctly, detective. He was serving a final eviction notice when 59-year-old David Eric Morales fatally shot him over an eviction. And so that brought in the SWAT team, and apparently this Morales decided to barricade himself in the house, and so they were bringing in the Bearcat and everything like that. Well, they did not realize that he strategically placed himself in the bushes in camouflage. And when the Bearcat came to approach the house, well, the Bearcat unintentionally ran over the suspect. So the suspect ended up losing his life. He exited through a window. They thought he was in the house. He exited through a window, moved to a nearby yard, wearing camouflage and tactical gears, and continued to fire at armored vehicles. And apparently the Bearcat ran over him. So the suspect in this area is dead. Don't play around with law enforcement, but I do believe that people, especially people that are desperate, I feel that sometimes they're taking a very temporary problem and making it a permanent solution. And I think that this is a great example of that. You know, there are ups and downs in our lives, and sometimes things happen. Bad things happen to good people. And this person here couldn't pay their bills. Okay, you don't get a right to live in somebody else's property without paying your bills. Now you're jamming that person up. You know, now you're causing havoc in their life because you can't pay your bills. It's not their problem. And people want to act like that somebody owes them something. No, nobody owes you a damn thing in this world. I want to make that very clear where we stand in this on this channel. Life is not fair. Okay. Life is not fair, period. People that have millions of dollars or pieces of garbage that probably shouldn't have it should be lower than Skid Row, right? But we don't understand where the balance comes from. We don't understand why this terrible person can have such a great life and squander it away while these people are great people and want a great life, and they don't get that. You know, we don't understand why the world is the way it is. We don't understand why some people are born in war-torn areas, and we Americans are born on sovereign soil that loves us, you know, or, you know, for the most part. We don't understand those things. Life is not fair, okay? It's just not. And I'm not going to try to say that we as human people are going to be able to find a way to make it fair. We're not. If anybody tells you that, they're filling your head full of garbage. Okay? Life will never be fair. Life has never been fair. Okay? None of life is fair. You try to do the best you can with what you're given. That's it. Right? Some people really piss it away. I can tell you I pissed 20 years of my life away. Okay? Some people, you know, they just know what they, like my little sister, she just kind of knew where she was going and grabbed it and fought for it and went out and got it, right? I wish I was like that. I never knew what the hell I wanted to do. I still to this day don't know what the hell I want to do, right? I've been all over the place. I just knew if I got into finance, if I got into all these different things, that no matter where I went in this world, I would be able to make money. You know, I even know construction work. I know electrical work. I know a lot of stuff. I know a lot of stuff that will keep me employed for the rest of my life. But life is not fair. But it is, yes, Chilled, it is what you make of it. It is what you make of it. So, you know, when people come here and say, why does Nancy get all this time? And why does this happen? And why does that happen? It's because, you know, she's Nancy Guthrie. She's Savannah Guthrie. Some people have it like that and some people don't. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. We would love to all think that we're just as valuable as a Guthrie, right? Or a Bush or a Trump. But let's be real here. That's not the reality of life, okay? Life is not fair. Some people just have a gift, and some people, you know, some people have the it factor and some people just don't. And as hard as that is, that jagged pill it is to swallow that we're just average folks, it's the pill that we have to swallow, that we're just average folks. And average folks don't get all the benefits that above average folks get. But average folks don't get the treatment of below average folks, okay? So, you know, you can always be angry and upset that you're not up there or down there or wherever you are, but at the end of the day, you're right where you need to be, and just trust in that. Just trust in that. But don't make a permanent situation a temporary situation a permanent one. This guy lost his life. A detective lost his life. A detective not going home. A detective that's out there just trying to do their freaking job. And of all things, serves an eviction notice. Just an eviction notice. Not, and he gets killed. In our country, that should not happen. I guarantee this person probably shouldn't even have owned a gun. Probably mentally unstable. How this happened, I don't know. And of all places, in California, right? The tough on crime state. The tough on crime state of California. The tough on crime state of California. Man, they know how to do everything so much better than everybody else, don't they? All right. So you guys get it. So I wanted you guys to hear just a little bit about this. Pretty interesting stuff. It caught my attention. I figured if you guys are in California, which we do have a lot of California watchers, if you guys didn't hear about this, we're just going to take a few minutes. It's a 15-minute press conference. I'm not doing it. It's not that important. It's not that important for me. This is it's just sad that we have a missing detective. So pray for the missing detective, or the deceased detective's family.
Pueden decir aquí las autoridades en instantes.
As I told you, this was very fluid. Even as I walked over here, I knew there was a lot of activity and a lot going on. The suspect was laying prone on the ground in camouflage clothing, continuing to pose a threat. This situation's resolved. The suspect is now dead. He was not shot. One of the Bearcats ran over him and killed him.
So you can see by the appearance of the sheriff's face, he's not really happy that the Bearcat was the neutralizing factor. But again, it was the neutralizing factor. Nobody can be further hurt by this individual. He got the dirty end of a Bearcat, and he got squished. So I like bringing these cases up because in case we have a criminal that comes across this channel, we just want to let you know, crime doesn't pay. You might get squished like a bug. I have to think that was a very painful death for that guy. It just seems like an eviction notice wouldn't have been so bad as opposed to being crushed by a Bearcat. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have packed my stuff and just left. I don't know about y'all. But anyways, guys, we've been covering this crazy story about these NASA scientists. Guys, I'm getting some information. I think that the whole NASA program that covered this, these people that were on there, I think it was a big lie and a big scam. I think people stole millions and billions of dollars from us for the last 40 or 50 years. I'm starting to get that vibe. I'm starting to get the vibe that this is not because of the work that they did on, you know, life forms on other planets. I think that this was probably one of the first laundering schemes of our lifetimes that was producing money that was able to stay in business for all of these years. And I think now that we have Doge and other things, I start to feel like we had a lot of doctored paperwork and a lot of theft of federal funds through this program. I don't know, you know, again, these are just some whiffs that I'm starting to hear about behind the scenes. They haven't been really public yet. But I've been wondering, you know, I've been kind of silently researching a little bit about these people. If you haven't heard about it, scientists and other administrative people that were working on a specific project or associated with a specific project started dying and disappearing. Just, yes, the ninth one, Arizona. And they've just disappeared or had really strange deaths where they just died, and nobody is explained, but it's starting to become so widely known because all of these people are connected that it's starting to creep people out. I'm wondering if the ones that are missing are going into hiding. I think they're being hunted. And if it's the scientists, I think these scientists needs to come and break their silence. If they're not dead, if these other ones are not dead and they haven't been murdered, I definitely think that somebody needs to come forward and say because whatever they know is it's killing them. They need to expose it. They knew too much, but I think it has to do with money. Because I keep thinking, what is our government ever? It's power and money. If you're getting murdered by our government, it's because it's over power and money. You have something that could take away their power and money. That's the only way you're getting killed by our federal government. And I believe our federal government, not the secret society of a federal government, is hunting these people. I truly believe that. At first, I was thinking maybe, you know, it's Iran or some other third world country that's coming in here and kidnapping our scientists to put together a secret weapon or something, you know, something really far in a conspiracy theory type of, you know, mechanism. Thank you, Lisa, being reminding us. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. We got 239 people here and only 70 thumbs up, and we're talking about bear cats and scientists disappearing. I should be getting at least a few thumbs up, folks. Come on now. I mean, we're up bright and early. Look at this. I got my face on. I'm dressed. I come here. Too much power. Yeah. But what creates too much power? What creates too much power? Money. And right now we're trying to find all the people, all the monsters out there, the monsters that are affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein to the monsters that have stolen, golly, trillions of dollars from the American people. I don't care if they're in the billions right now. We all know that we've been robbed for years. We're in the trillions of dollars. I guarantee more than 25% of our overall budget. Our overall, you know, like we're $36 trillion in debt. And I bet you anyway. I bet you anything that more than $6 trillion of that dollars is straight fraud. Straight fraud. We have been funding terrorism around this world. The American citizens. We all hate war. How many of you guys hate? I'm not going to get on. I'm going to get off this political stuff real quick, but I just want to gear, because I think this is a nonpartisan issue. How many of us hate war? How many of us don't want to put our citizens, our men and women, our children, our loved ones overseas to fight from war? If you guys are I mean, we know we have to have war. I'm not saying, you know, we don't want, but how many of us, we don't like it, right? Do you like war? Raise your hand if you guys do not like war. Or put a 1 in the chat. If you do not like war, you wish war was over, put a 1 in the chat. Yeah, I don't think any of us want war. I really don't. Yet we have to go out every single time and fight these these things, and it costs us a lot of money, but it enriches somebody. It enriches somebody, right? And so we've been in wars for years and years and years. Why? Because Bush had it in with the people that created the wartime stuff, right? The military stuff. They have to keep them employed. They have to keep their lines running. So they have to create chaos around this country. We don't agree with war, yet we're funding 90% of the war around our world. And we don't know that. We're just now finding out that we have been the people funding all of this chaos. We have been the one funding the Russia and Ukraine war. Yes, we have. People are like, no, we haven't. Oh, yes, we have. And not only have we funded it, the Democratic Party and some of the Republicans have actually laundered some of that money. That means they send it over to Ukraine with the caveat, oh, you need to send XYZ back into our personal coffers. That's called laundering. So not only are they paying for these wars, they're getting kickbacks from these countries that we're sending all this money to. How disgusting is that? How disgusting is that? We've been funding all of this chaos. The American people. The American people. And so I wonder what is causing power and money. And to me, it sounds like we're coming after people that are doing this stuff. And it sounds like these people may have a lot of information that might explain how these people became so powerful. Because look at Jeffrey Epstein's rise. If you really want to, this is kind of going into conspiracy theories, so please just work with me here. But I know we're all kind of interested in this, but this is the way I think. He was a math teacher, and then all of a sudden he has millions and millions of dollars to buy ranches and to have this island and stuff like that. We knew it's because he blackmailed people. That means he knew about this a long time ago, and they were paying him to shut him up. They were paying him all this money to keep his mouth shut. It's, we have a child crime case here with Epstein, but we have something a lot bigger than that with Epstein, because the people that were playing in his sandbox were running our world. So not only were these people creeps, these people had a lot of secrets they needed hidden. And now all of this stuff is coming out. How were they able to fund that all the way back then? Somebody had to have been funneling money to them. And we're hearing that it's possible that this stuff here was scammed money from us. That's what I'm hearing. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. This is just what I'm hearing. Take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know. I'm not involved. I know nothing about this stuff. I will be honest with you. This stuff here creeps me the hell out. That's one thing I will tell you, is when I start seeing scientists, there's a conspiracy here. That's what I know. I know there's a conspiracy here. What type of conspiracy are we looking at when it comes to this? I don't know. Is it because these people were robbing us blind? Is it because they know something that the government is trying to keep us, keep away from us? But no matter what it is, I believe that these people are being hushed up or running for their life right now to keep something super secret. And I hope one of them, if they're hiding, I hope they come out and expose what it is that's hunting them down right now, because something or someone or some entity is hunting these people down. That's what I'm seeing here. And they can sugarcoat it. They can put word salad on this. They can do whatever they need to do. But at the end of the day, I'm seeing scientists being taken off this earth. And for what purpose? It's definitely a conspiracy, and it's definitely something with our government. That I guarantee. That I almost guarantee. Right? I don't see how this is working. Again, my original thought was some country was coming over here, taking our very good knowledgeable scientists and taking them and kidnapping them. Because we've heard, it's to be honest with you, it's cinematic. I saw it on a movie once. right? I saw it on a movie once where they took these scientists, it was, I can't remember what, it was a fictitious whatever. They took the scientists, they needed them to put together something, so they took them in and they said, if you don't do this, we're going to kill you, something like that. And it was just a movie. But I've seen this movie before. And that's what I kind of felt. I felt like this was another nation coming and kidnapping our scientists to build them something that they didn't have the equipment or the knowledge or the forethought to build. But now that we're hearing assistants are dying and people have died, not just disappeared, my whole theory about this conspiracy theory has changed totally, right? It's completely changed. So I do believe that there is a conspiracy going on here. I do believe something is happening to the scientists, and I wonder if it has something to do with what I'm hearing behind the scenes of this being one of the biggest scams of our nation. And if that is the truth, we need to know, because we funneled a lot of money into these programs back in those days. We had a whole area that, nobody could go into. Was that all a scam? Was it all a scam? Many of us kind of feel like maybe that's what we're hearing, is that this was all a scam. They scammed us out of a lot of money. Now, again, that could be rumor. That could be somebody trying to distract. It could be the red herring. And maybe I'm picking up on the red herring. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. We don't know what we're dealing with here. So on the new case, I'm kind of diving in here with this new case a little bit. We're about to get over to Miss Nancy Guthrie. I'm gonna kind of go through this just a little bit, and then we'll move right on. How many clips do I have related to this? We just have this one clip, and it's like 6 minutes long. We're not even going to watch the whole 6 minutes. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase what we've got here. So, as you guys know, Lynette, she's the lady here. She is missing. Her husband, right here, his name's Brian. He survived. So what he was saying, what we've learned about these people is that they do this kind of boat life, okay? They party hard out there on the waters. They like to drink. While they drink, they have fights, and this is customary to people that like to drink. It's, if people are heavy drinkers, them having altercations is almost a given. Okay. It just is what it is. It's just part of the whole lifestyle. Okay. And whether we agree with it, disagree with it, whatever, it is what it is. If you used to drink, you're very versed in altercations with your significant other if you drink heavy. I used to drink heavy. I had many heated conversations, arguments, fights, arrests, everything from the lifestyle I was living. So I understand this as well. The daughter has stated that, they get into fights. They've been together 25 years. Okay, so they've been together for a really long time, right? They love each other, but they have this, love-hate relationship that only comes with really a substance abuse or alcohol abuse relationship, and that's the kind of relationship that they have, according to the daughter. The daughter has been very honest. She's obviously known her stepdad for 25 years. So, she feels like maybe, and my heart breaks for her because she loves him. You can tell that she cares for him. But she wants to be honest for her mother's sake, and she says that she's just scared that his anger got the best of him, and he went too far from something he can't come back from, is basically what the stepdaughter said. And I have a tendency to believe her, one, because she's not coming out just to fully attack this guy. She's trying to there is arrest. He hasn't been officially charged, but he's detained. He's arrested. They call it arrested. We call it detainment for the type of arrest he has. They haven't charged him with any crime. They have up to 48 hours, and they can extend that window up to 96 hours. But the problem is I think they're looking for her in that water, and I don't think she's in the water. If she is in the water, I feel like she's weighted down. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like something happened. I don't think that the altercation specifically happened on their boat. I think there is, unless I'm having a hard time understanding why they were at this strip, and then he had why didn't they go back to that strip for help? I'd have to think that there was something. I'm not familiar with Bahamas. Only people that have been there or know that strip would know whether there's any amenities on that strip, if there's any, any place where you can pick up a phone and call for help or something like that. I would assume that there would be some type, on strips of places, even, because they have a lot of tourists there. I would think that there would be places that tourists can stop and call for help. And especially on little strips that are out away from, the main hub. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe it truly is just a very all-natural strip that has no amenities there, nothing. I just don't know. She looks like you. Let's hope not. Let's hope not. My future doesn't look as grim as hers, Unfortunately, this is what it is, but they were on an 8-foot dinghy. If they did have an altercation on that 8-foot dinghy, it just seems like she would have fallen in the water very quickly. Unless she was hit in the head or unconscious or drunk, so drunk that she was falling over, I'm sorry, but somebody that drinks heavy, they don't get drunk like we get drunk. If we were to drink right now, we would be probably 3 sheets to the wind after maybe a second or third drink. Okay. People that drink can drink a case of booze, and still walk and talk and remember everything. You've got to understand, people with bodies that are conditioned to alcohol can withstand a lot more alcohol in their bodies than, say, people that don't drink. I can tell you, if I were to drink a beer right now, I would probably feel the effects of the first beer immediately, because I haven't drank in the last time I had a beer was when I was going through all the stuff I was going through at the end of 2023, and my mom took me out, and I was just so frazzled that I drank a beer with my mom, and that was the last beer that I had, in the recent times, right? And that was years ago. So I know for a fact, and I don't even remember finishing that. I don't even think I liked it. Because I hadn't had beer in so long. It was like, I just wanted to calm my nerves, and so I drank. I didn't even like it. So I haven't drank. So if I were to pick up a beer today, I feel like if I were to drink it, I would feel it. So it's a little bit different. So even if she was drunk, she's not the kind of drunk that we would have been. You see what I'm saying? Well, keep moving along with that. 6 months sober. You need, sobriety's not easy. You feel a lot more. You're a lot more emotional. But I like full sobriety. Like even before I was on substances, well, I got shook that, but I still drank here and there. And then it just got to the point where I was just like, why, because when I was going through all the stuff that I was going through in 2023, I felt that if to be honest with you, it scared me. I felt like if I started drinking, I would not stop. So I just, I didn't want to go down that road. So I could see that I was in a lot of pain, and I knew in my mind, in my body and soul, that I didn't need that type of medicine, right? So it scared me enough just to say, I know I'm going through a lot. I know I'm, I have an addictive personality and stuff like that. So I didn't even want to make that a part of a habit for me, going through all of that painful stuff. So I just wore the pain and just, pushed through it, persevered through it. That sucked. That was about as bad as trying to quit smoking. Golly, I hated smoking. But I hated quitting worse. I hated quitting worse. It was, but because I struggled through it, it's like, I'm never going back to that again. I'm never going back to that again, right? So it's just one of those things. I'm never going back to that again, right? We broke the habit. I'm happy to have the habit. It's sobriety equals clarity. It does. And that's why we drank, right? We didn't want the clarity. The clarity was too painful, and we rather stuff it down into the pits of our souls and then deal with it and have clarity. So yes, clarity is one of the benefits of sobriety. So it's life, and I love it. I don't see myself changing that anytime soon. When you get to a place of where you're happier than you were before, I think that helps. That helps. But either way, do they have a drinking problem? Do they not? We don't know. You know, it sounds like the daughter feels that they both had a drinking problem, and they both had altercations as a result of those drinking problems for the 25 years that they've been together. So she's accustomed to this. And that's what she's saying. And of course, his attorney is really, you know, because she's being honest, and attorneys don't like honesty, especially when they need to represent a client that might be in the hot seat for a homicide, right? Because let's face it, even if they just got into an altercation or he was driving that boat under the influence of alcohol, I mean, you've got a manslaughter charge, right, by boat. You know, but because of intoxicity. So, I mean, they've got enough here to charge him with, because I'm pretty sure he was under the influence that night. And I think that they'll be able to prove that he was under the influence of that night. And if he says that she, you know, it may not be a homicide charge right at the beginning, but they just based on his statements, he's committed a crime. He's committed a crime of driving a boat under the influence of alcohol, and somebody ended up going overboard and hasn't been found, most likely lost their life. That to me sounds like a manslaughter charge. So I think right now they've got him enough. They probably know and have receipts for him to be able to prove that they were drinking that day. I think they'll have enough to get him on at least a DUI, operating a watercraft vehicle. And then the subsequent, somebody, you know, went off the boat while they were under the influence and operating that. So I think there's something here that they can at least charge him with to keep him in jail. They haven't charged him with anything yet. And the daughter is, again, you can see that she is not doing well with this. Her face says everything. She's very, very concerned about her mom. But it seems to me like she has accepted that she knows her mom is dead. So this is a big thing for children to accept something like that, and to know something, because she's already processed it. Her mom's a great swimmer. Her mom, you know, falling off a boat shouldn't have killed her mom. I'm sure her mom's probably fallen off many boats if they've been on the water. I've fallen off of boats before. Hardly a life-threatening situation. Okay. Hardly a life-threatening situation. So how the mom died sober. Oh, that's great. 9, her sobriety date. Yep, she's definitely, I know that there's a lot of people haven't seen me, you know, because you have to change people, places, and things. So there's a lot of friends that I haven't seen in years, literally years, decades at this point, decade and a half at this point. But, you know, could this be, I think this is going to be one of those cases where we're going to ultimately be talking about, you know, alcoholism, and we're going to be talking about domestic violence as a result of alcoholism. I think that's where we're going to be going with this case. Now, we're not there yet. We don't know what happened. Obviously, Brian is innocent until being proven guilty in a court of law. He's in a Bahamian jail. You know, they do have, they have reasonable laws. They're not authoritarian. I mean, he's not like in China, you know, he's in the Bahamas, and they do have a good legal system. I mean, it's not the same as America, but it's similar. So that gives him a fighting chance for those people that are in our chat that are concerned about whether or not, you know, he's going to be railroaded or not. He might be, because it sounds like he engaged in a conversation with detectives, and according to his attorney, they tricked him into this. Sitting down, they told him basically, according to him, they told him that he doesn't need an attorney. I don't know if that's the case. You know, we haven't seen the results of that interview or what was actually said. You know, this is a he said, she said type of situation when it comes to law enforcement and Brian. But after that 3-hour conversation, they ultimately arrested Brian as a result of it. So his attorney is not really happy about that. His attorney is not happy about the daughter speaking ill against the client, saying, you know, they have been violent in the past. He has a history of violence and stuff like that, which he does, even though the history is not on the record. And listen, I'm sorry. I've lived in domestic violence homes. I know what it is, and I can tell you 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a record, because people that are being abused or that engage, mutual combatants. I would say that this might be more on the lines of mutual combatants. We have those laws here in this Florida. That basically means that if you choose to fight, if you choose to mutually combat, yet you can't, press charges against this person, or, because you both chose to engage. So nobody's right here, but you can't press charges and throw one person in without throwing both of them in. So we have mutual combatant type of laws here in the state of Florida. But, out here, I would kind of say that would be it, because it sounds like they both drank. They've been together 25 years, and they both engaged in this alcohol-fueled, they were good when they're good, they're good. When they're bad type of relationship, which many of us here should know what that's like, because many of us come from dysfunctional homes. There's a lot of us that come from dysfunctional homes, and you guys can understand this and identify this very quickly. So I don't know if that's the case here. I don't know these people. But I can see that the only thing I can tell you is that what the daughter is saying doesn't seem like it's coming from a resentful place. It's coming from, she just wants the truth. She doesn't know what to believe. She'd hate to think that her stepdad did this, but she also knows the tumultuous relationship at times that they had, especially when they mixed alcohol, because she had to live through it. He's been in her life since I think she was like 9 or 10 years old. So she's had to live with this for years, with them drinking like this and fighting like this. So I think she's not coming from a place of resentment. She's coming from a place of concern. She's praying to God that that's not the case with her father or stepfather. But I think she kind of feels in her gut that it is, and that's why she's talking about it. If she didn't think it was a factor, I don't see her bringing it up. I really don't. So, I feel, what does it say? Hold on. Mom had drinking associates, said not really friends. Yeah. Well, when you're in that lifestyle, you kind of have associates, because it's a DV type of lifestyle. So both of them are going to, they're going to have their associates, but they're not going to keep anybody close, because one thing with domestic violence is it breeds in solitude, right? They keep you away from really having good bonds. So you'll see the people out at the bars, but you ain't hanging out with them after or outside of the bars type of thing. So I think that's what they're talking about. They were, a good fun time out when they're out with their friends, but when they go home, it's a little bit of a different dynamic is what I'm gathering. So he's been arrested. It sounds like the 48 hours is truly starting to come to fruition on when they need to make a decision on charging him or letting him go. So it is possible, folks, that he might be let go if they cannot find her body. And we all know if she did truly drown, if everything he's saying is correct and she did truly drown out there in the middle of nowhere, you've got two things going on. She can drift and just drift out where nobody's going to find her. And in my assessment, that could be plausible, because we know that when somebody, especially that's salt water, so they can sink, and it's deep, so they could probably sink, but they wouldn't sink all the way to the bottom because of the buoyancy of the salinity, the salt in the water. But at some point when their body starts breaking down or starts filling with gases, it's going to start pushing her back up to the top. Now, they're in warmer waters of the Bahamas, so we're not going to be waiting for something like this to take place in 14 days. We should have the gases build up and the body breaking down much quicker in warmer waters. So I would anticipate within a week, if she truly did drown out there, we should start seeing her somewhere in and around that area. Now, how far would she drift? We're hearing choppy waters. We're hearing, the winds and stuff like that. She could be moved very quickly, depending on the conditions of the water. So we don't know where she's going to ultimately pop up. But in my opinion, if she doesn't pop up, just like that one girl that met that student down in wherever, she never was found. I don't believe the guy. I don't believe the college kid that came back, the Iowa college kid. I don't believe him, because she was never found. Even after all this time, she was never found. Sanuki, I think is her name. Something like that. I can't remember, but she was never found. I believe that kid did something to her. When people aren't found in the water, I truly believe something happened, because they should be able to find. There's enough ships going through there that when that body is found, I mean, no matter what, you're not going to have, it's very rare you're going to have a shark come by and take a whole person, you know? Even when people are attacked out in the wild, what do we have? We have a lot left of them, you know, because sharks don't like the taste of, whether you believe it or not, they don't like the taste of human blood. So they might kill us, but they usually spit us out. You know, it's like if you don't like like onion, right? And you get an onion in your mouth, what do? Yeah, you bit into it, but you just realized it's an onion, and what do? Right? So that's kind of what sharks do. So even if a shark, and even if you should still have something there. You should still have something. We got nothing. So if this lady is not found in that strait, I truly believe he did something to her. I would be looking on that land to find out if there's any shallow graves. Because for whatever reason, I believe something happened not in the water. I feel like something happened not in the water. But that's just an assessment. It doesn't mean that it holds water. You know, it is what it is. This is a sad case, and I feel awful for her daughter. Because her daughter didn't get to see or hold her mom before she left, you know. And she's dealing with all of this from so many miles away. I can't imagine how hopeless and helpless her daughter has to be feeling right now. So, all right, guys, I'm not sure if this is appropriate for this. It's not what I believe, but I came across it, and this is related to Savannah Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie is her mom that was ripped out of her bed in the middle of the night by a masked gunman. And this is from Hustle. I'm not going to say his last name because Sonia will get on me. But it's from Hustle, and he had some commentary to say here, almost like a conspiracy theory, and because of his platform, because of how many followers he has, I thought it was important that we brought this up, because I disagree with it. And I don't know, well, let me preface this. I don't know if one is connected to the other. I don't necessarily disagree, but I don't know if one is necessarily connected to the other. I feel like this is a Bishop. There you go. This is a perspective that I don't necessarily tend to agree with, because I don't think Savannah had anything to do with her mom. You can tell that she is the baby, and she's the one that was hit the hardest with this whole disappearance of her mother. This is, you know, you can physically see it on her as opposed to any other family, you know, sister or brother. They don't have the same face as Savannah. Savannah is really affected by this. But this person had brought up, you know, the fact that, you know, Savannah had been panicking over low ratings. I don't know if she's been panicking over low ratings. I did not really pay a whole lot of attention to the Today's Show. It's not my cup of tea. You know, I'm not into all the cooking and stuff like that. It's just not my cup of tea. It's somebody's cup of tea. They have a good following, but I haven't paid attention to that show for a really long time. Aaron, hello, love. Pasco shrimper lost at sea a few months ago. Ooh, interesting. I'll have to check that out. Pasco shrimper. Let me write this down. Shrimper. Did they ever find him? And where was he? Like, was he like off our Florida coast, or was he in international waters? You know, I'm just trying to get, well, I guess I'll look it up. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're hearing that she had low ratings, and then her mother was abducted, and now they're back on the air with numbers suddenly surging. That's what we're hearing. And, I don't think one had to do with the other, but we don't know what happened to her. And I've always felt like this was a hit of some sort, you know, like somebody ordered this. Not that I would say NBC would do it for ratings. I think that would be like really crazy, but we don't know. We don't know, you know. Could it be possible? I'm sure it's possible, but the probability is probably very low, right? But something could be said over this. I'm not sure, you know, this would be a lot to do for some ratings. You know, I don't know of anybody that's willing to sacrifice their mother, you know, for a few clicks and a view. I mean, especially somebody like Savannah. I mean, we can clearly see that she is very upset over this. So let me put this back up. There we go. So this is Jennifer Coffindaffer, and I kind of like what she says about the whole nanos, no confident vote, you know, the Porch guy. This was pretty interesting, and then we've got a couple other little conversation pieces, and then we're going to be getting into kind of the show, the interview room. So we've got, and we're already at after an hour. We're going to probably be here for a little bit. This might spill over into a third hour. But we'll try to keep it about the second hour and get closed out. But there's no guarantee for that. We got, again, just a lot of stuff to go over.
How to catch Porch Guy. Number one, his face needs to be everywhere. It needs to be on flyers. It needs to be on posters. It needs to be on billboards. Every place somebody who commutes could see it. That's where it needs to be.
Amen.
Your average everyday person who is working, who's trying to feed their family, who's taking their kids to sports, that's who needs to see this. So many people aren't on social media. They don't watch the news. They take care of their lives. So it needs to be every place that a car could be.
Amen.
Every place a person has to go. Schools, telephone poles, barbershops. That's where his face.
Oh yeah, you can't post flyers on telephone poles in Puma County like missing people. They'll arrest you. Talk about tyranny. You know, this is what I don't understand. If we have a whole, and this is a real question, and it's not a stab, it's not a dig, but we have a Democratic Party that doesn't like criminals being in jail, but yet you give your frickin' governments, your local governments, the authority to arrest you at a drop of a frickin' dime. What kind of garbage is that? Like, this is insanity. You can't put a frickin' flyer of a missing lady on a post without getting arrested, but they can have these people creeping around in the middle of the night with going unarrested. Who would you rather have arrested, these creeps in the middle of the night or somebody posting a flyer of a missing person? Or parking on the side of the road to drop some flowers off in front of a memorial? These people are insane. That frickin' HOA, if they're really trying to push all of this out and trying to destroy that memorial, they're pieces of shit. Period.
Face needs to be, and then perhaps that would increase the visibility, and possibly somebody will recognize Porch Guy that never even knew anything about this case. Number two, they need to release the enhancement that Quantico would have done by this time of the audio and video. Those enhancements could provide many more details. Likely it's been put into color. That should be released. I guarantee you Quantico has done this. Number three, the Behavioral Analysis Unit has done incredible work in the past. I can tell you personally, I've talked about it, 3 different cases I had where they had no information except for the clues that were left behind in the case. In each of those cases, the Behavioral Analysis Unit was critical into giving me a pointer. And in fact, they were right on each of those 3 occasions. That needs to be made public. So a combination between the enhancement of the videos and the photographs and circulating them much more widely on every billboard that the FBI can put them on, and then finally giving some sort of information regarding who this guy is based on the analysis by the behavioral analysts with the FBI. Add that all together, and at least that increases the chances for the public to be able to help in finding Porch Guy.
So as you guys can see, we need some other work going on to advertise this Porch guy. I feel like, the FBI is not putting him up on the billboards. He's not being put on flyers. Everybody wants to know who he is, but nobody's really trying to elicit the information from the public, which is the only way this is going to help. The FBI clearly does not know who this person is. The Pima County Sheriff clearly doesn't know who this person is. We have no arrests. We have no Nancy. And here are things that they could do to help people identify who this man is. And every time we turn around, what's going on here? I don't like that. I keep moving this thing and it screws up my green screen and puts a shadow behind it because it's not so tight. And I'm probably going to have to do something with it to get it better. I don't like the shadow. I don't like that shadow there. But you can see my shadow. I don't like it. I'm going to have to change my lighting. Anyways, so we've just got... We're not doing enough to try to identify the subject. We don't have enough here to talk about to help identify. I mean, you got a world of people here talking about the case of Nancy Guthrie. You got the world of people here putting up the same image of this assailant, and there's more information that could accompany this that helps identify this. We're trying to identify somebody that knows this man. And if we don't have any, obviously what we've had since February 10th, think of February 10th is when it was released. It is April 10th right now. So you've got March. So it's been almost 60 days. 60 days since they released the Porch guy. 60 days. They still have not uncovered who he is after 60 days. Obviously, more needs to come out. More needs to come out from law enforcement and the FBI. I'm praying that the FBI is looking at what they can do to put out to the public so the public can have maybe some more identifying markers for the assailant. That's why they want that profile out, because that profile might help identify. Like I said, there might be somebody saying, wow, that looks like my husband or my boyfriend or my friend, right? That looks like my friend. I remember that jacket. That looks like Joe Plumber. That looks like my friend Joe Plumber. It can't be Joe Plumber. This is crazy. I cannot believe I'm thinking it's Joe Plumber. And then they get the profile and it's like, that sounds like Joe Plumber. Oh my God, that sounds like Joe Plumber. Oh my gosh, this sounds like Joe Plumber. Ring ring. Yeah, I've been sitting on this for a while. I did think it was him, but now that you put the profile out, I really think it might be Joe Plumber. And that's how we get things done. And so we're missing that. We're missing that element. We're missing that element of Joe Plumber, of identifying Joe Plumber. So I think that what we need to do in what we're hearing from these retired FBI agents is that, maybe start dangling a little carrot out there for somebody that may help identify this person, right? So maybe a part of the profile is, let's go with something that we think we already know, that this person might be living with their parent, a mom or a father, a parent. Or maybe it may even be identified that this person's living with only their mother. Right? We don't know how these profiles work. I'm not a profile expert. I don't expect you guys to be a Josephine Plumber. And Mike's still on it, girl. I guess this day and age, even girls can have Franken beans. But I'm just saying, I just think it's a man. I'm just thinking it's a man. I don't know. I'm just thinking. So let's get back to this one. We already heard that one. And then we have this new ransom note, a sick plot against the family, according to this ex-FBI agent. So let's just read this here. It says, a latest purported ransom note sent to TMZ claiming to know who the kidnapper is. Now, remember, guys, outside of these articles, I will not be covering any more. If TMZ gets any more ransom letters and you guys want it covered, don't come to Bullhorn Betty. I'm not covering any more TMZ ransom notes. I have put my line in the sand. I think it's detrimental to this case. I think it's for a click and a view. I don't think they're legitimate, and I don't see where they're helping bring Nancy home. And because of those reasons, because it's not moving the needle and it's just for content, not for any type of resolution, I don't want any part of it. I'm not here to talk about all of these talking points. I don't need to. We want legitimate talking points. This ransom, to me, these new ransoms are illegitimate. Now, if law enforcement wants to put the legitimate, the ones they believe is legitimate, out to the public, then do it. But I don't believe in them. And according to what we know from law enforcement is they would have to take these things seriously until they're proven unserious. And I think right now we're in that unserious category. I don't believe anything proved that these people, I don't think they had one scintilla of legitimate information that could be verified that this was true. Something that was only they knew. I mean, the lights being broken, her potentially being in pajamas, leaving the house with no shoes, those seem to me to be all legitimate things that you can conclude based on the evidence that before you. That it just took somebody just walking through the information to create this. And all of that information was publicly available. So everything that we're hearing that these ransom notes contained, in my opinion, had publicly related information in them and nothing specific saying, oh, this, unless they said, we stuck, this earpiece, we stuck her so that we're being truthful. We stuck her hearing aid, behind the dresser, behind the nightstand, the right nightstand. You have to pull the dresser out, and there is where you'll find her hearing aid. Anything short of that, I don't believe. There's got to be proof that these people were there. Just like this other person said, they were able to send this guy's credit card along with the note. That's pretty good evidence that they at least came into contact with this guy. Okay? So anything short of something like that, I don't believe it. I don't think it's Luke Daly after they went to his house nearly 2 months ago with a warrant. He's not off my list, though. I don't know if it's him or not. He's not off my list, and it has to do with that right hand, that hand injury, and the fact that we also now see that there might be some leg damage. There might be something where he injured his leg too. So if we find out that Luke has a right hand injury and a right leg injury, well, I'm sorry. If it was just Chris Nanos that executed the warrant against Luke Daly, I would question it, without a doubt. Just like we do Carlos. Carlos was Pima County, okay? So that means it was their DA. But Luke is different. Luke was a federal warrant. Luke was a federal warrant by the feds in front of a federal judge. I don't see any federal judge carte blanche writing without having a good probable cause as to why. They would have had to present some evidence to this federal attorney or federal judge to get this warrant. That's my problem I have with Luke. You don't hear me talking about Carlos. Even when I saw Carlos's face, I felt like he was being genuine. Again, I don't know that, there's a lot of cunning and conniving people out there that can convince us, that they can convince an Eskimo they need snow or ice, right? There are just some very clever, cunning, and calculated people out there. So, I don't know if that's, but I feel like Carlos has nothing to do with this. But we have to remember Carlos was a local warrant. Luke was not. Luke was a federal warrant. Betty, what does it say? Betty, watch the interview. Oh, we're going to be talking about it 2-speed. I've got it pulled up. I got it pulled up right here. Excuse me, not right there, right there. There it is. This is it. Interview room. So we've got the interview room pulled up. We're just not ready for it yet. So let's get back and reading this. So the notes which claim to know where her body could be found were sent just as Guthrie's daughter Savannah made her emotional return to the Today Show. Again, not really paying a whole lot of attention. I don't like there. They sent these right when Savannah went back to work. That's by no mistake. That was absolutely meant to further torment her and her family, Jennifer Coffindaffer told Newsweek. And I believe it. I believe whoever's doing this is trying. At least the fake ransoms that I believe are fake ransoms from this person here, I think is I don't think their intent is to torment the family. I think their intent is to try to elicit even $1 from somebody just to say that we accomplished this. Like I don't take these people seriously at all. I really just don't. I think it speaks to the fact that at least someone out there is still wanting to torture this family by sending these continued communications with no proof of life. I don't think that that's directed. Otherwise, if they wanted to torment the family, they would send it to the Today Show, not to TMZ. I think they're just trying to get TMZ to pay them something. Guthrie, 84, has been missing since February 1st after authorities believe she was kidnapped from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Since her disappearance, multiple purported ransom notes have been reported, including several sent to TMZ, the bogus TMZ. And of course, TMZ is constantly putting them up on the camera. So, these people believe that they if they send them, they'll keep getting up. Maybe the person is relishing in that 15 minutes of fame when they send these things. Maybe that's the only purpose for these. Maybe it's not even for the money. It's just to get away with it, right? Just to get away with it, to see how long they can keep going without law enforcement knowing that they're doing this. The pair of notes received by the outlet on Monday were sent from the same anonymous person who nearly 2 months ago demanded 1 Bitcoin in exchange for the information related to Guthrie's abduction. The first note claimed that Guthrie was dead, but the sender said that their offer to deliver the kidnappers on a silver platter for cryptocurrency still stands. And the second note, they claim that they have seen Guthrie alive with her captors in Mexico in Sonora, Mexico, just across the border of Arizona. Again, no proof of that, just statements from these ransom notes that we don't believe are true. The person said they would surrender the information for 1 Bitcoin. Coffindaffer believes they're lying about having real information because they're shooting for a single Bitcoin, a value of $71,000, than the massive reward of $1.2 million. The reason this makes sense to me is they don't have the knowledge is because they're not seeking $1.2 million. Instead, they're trying to subvert it with this quick paid, no hoops to jump through, just get the money. But I think that these people are scammers. We all believe that they're scammers. So this is a sick plot just to scam money or seek attention. And then I saw this article from page 6, which is promoted by the New York Post, and I'm not sure if this is. I'd have to think that this is an affiliate of New York Post for them to advertise it so much. But the walls are closing in on Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper after Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show, as her national platform will help keep eyes on the case, according to former experts, even though she's not talking about it. Every day that passes, the pressure builds. Keeping a secret like this is exhausting, and it gets harder with every morning that Savannah Guthrie sits behind the anchor's desk. Former FBI agent Jason Pack exclusively told page 6. Most criminals in cases like this count on media moving on, he continued. They count on the family fading from the public view. They count on people forgetting. This case is different. Savannah has a national platform and she shows up every single day. Every time a viewer sees her face, they think of her mother. And I have to believe that that would be true. They think of her mother. Pack believes the more attention the case receives, the more pressure on the people responsible goes up, and I believe that. And this is where social media excels and mainstream media fails. Because we keep on these cases. Now, granted, we have this lady's in mainstream media, so mainstream media is actually pulling their weight on this case, but typically they don't pull their weight. They come in for their 5 or their 5-minute little clips, and after they're done with their little clips, they put it on a shelf and they leave it until the next day they need to do their 5-minute clip. They don't ever really try to hold politicians or hold people, decision makers' feet to the fire and really apply pressure like they used to do back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now we've got lap cats in the media that are lazy. They don't want to apply pressure. They want to be nice. We're not nice. We want answers. We want action. We're not pussycats. We're pit bulls. And that's where we differ from mainstream media, in my opinion. And we've got this lady here that has her Today Show, and yeah, she's up there every day, but she can't even talk about her mother, and they've been instructed not to talk about her mother. So yeah, she's there, but is she really using her platform, and do really people look at her and look at her mom? They're going to be distracted. In 2 weeks, people's minds go. I mean, it's a science. So we know within 2 weeks, a new case can come along and distract from an old case very, very quickly. So, it's just a matter of time before another major breaking case, and we're teetering on another major breaking case, taking focus off this one with the Bahamas case. As you see, mainstream media, social media, a lot of people are starting to focus on Bahamas. Once you get everybody on the same page talking about a case, this case goes away. It goes bye-bye. And now we're on to the next case. That's how important it is. That's why we front load all of these stories. People don't understand why we do it. They keep saying, oh, it's a grift. No, it's not. We know what we're doing. We've been doing this a long time. We know how the news cycle works. And these people are still missing long after we stopped talking about them. Right? Sebastian Rogers' case, still missing. Layla Santinello, still missing. Summer Wells, still missing. Holland Stapp, still missing. Harmony Montgomery, arrest, convictions, still missing. West Boys, prosecution, conviction, guess what? Still missing. Still missing, still missing, still missing. These were hot and heavy cases that we spent a lot of time on, and look at them. They're dust in the wind. This case is going to be dust in the wind. It's only a matter of time. So we need to get as much in this case as we can up front. Because when those lights go off and this case is moved on from, that's it for social media. We come back to it once in a while. And we give updates once in a while. Definitely not enough to get the case solved from that point forward. We need help. Law enforcement needs to keep this case attractive. And when people shut up, so does social media, so does mainstream media. And then guess what happens? The case even gets further cold. It's a horrible strategy that many law enforcement bodies adopt. And it's horrible. It's stupid. And it makes no sense. So, in my opinion, FBI really needs to start releasing some additional information. Not the integrity of the case, but let's just start working on focusing just squarely on the assailant. Obviously, we've looked for Miss Guthrie. We can't find her. Now it's time to switch gears and focus solely on this captor, this assailant, this one that we see. Now, are there multiple? We don't know, but we see one. So let's find out who that guy is. Because if there's multiple, that guy will lead us to the multiples. And if this guy acted alone, we know that she's somewhere nearby. There's a lot of things that can happen when we learn about people's behaviors. And we need to learn about this person's behavior. We have no idea who this is. As soon as we find out, we will be able to make a difference. We will be able to make a difference. But until law enforcement starts leaking or releasing some information, predominantly that profile. I think that profile, once the profile is released, whoever is on the fence about their loved one or their family member or their boyfriend or their significant other, whatever the case may be, as soon as that profile is released, somebody's going to have a light go off and say, oh my God, it is them. Because they had already had a notch in the pit of their stomach. They already felt odd. Their person is acting a little different than they were before Miss Nancy Guthrie disappeared. Somebody knows this behavior. They're just in denial. We need to get them out of that denial phase and into the oh my God phase. It could be them. Because we need whoever it is to pick up the phone and call law enforcement, and that person has not done it yet. Or if they had, their lead is in a massive pile of 40,000 leads. Folks, If you're watching this show and you turned in a lead to the FBI because you're from this local area and you believe that it may have been somebody, you might want to recall that lead in. I know that law enforcement tells us not to do that, but in all fairness, with 40 or 50,000 leads, if you really believe that your guy might be it, and they haven't called you back and they haven't named your guy, and you know that nobody's went over and spoke to that guy, you might want to just say, hey, I called back early on in this investigation. I gave you so-and-so's name. I don't expect you to call, because they're not going to call you back. They're not going to tell you where your lead went. They just don't do that. But, say that I'm so confident, if you are, don't repeat what I'm saying if you don't believe it, but if you're so confident that this person might be the assailant and they haven't even questioned that assailant yet, then maybe that lead is still in that 50,000 leads. You might want to call that back in, maybe call to the Crime Stoppers line instead of the Pima County line, or if you called the FBI line, maybe calling the Crime Stoppers line, or if you call Pima County, maybe calling the FBI. Putting that lead into a different curator. If you called it into the Pima County line and it went nowhere, maybe go to Crime Stoppers or the FBI. If you think that this person could really be it and nobody's taking you seriously, and you feel like you're now listen, folks, I don't want people that are unaffiliated with this area calling. I think that is, even if you feel like you got information, email it. Don't ever call those lines, because emails they can get to at their leisure. When you call, you might be kicking somebody that has legitimate information off. And I know you think your information is legitimate, but I want you to use some common sense here. If you're halfway across the country, do you really think that you have firsthand information if you've never met these people before? I mean, logically, let's be honest. In the pit of your stomach, you don't. There should be no reason for you picking up the phone and calling a tip line. Okay? I'm sorry, folks. I know you're just wanting to help. I understand that. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just telling you to use some common sense before you pick up the phone. Okay? Because the phones are for tips. That means people that have first-hand, second-hand, or third-hand knowledge of a crime. Okay? That's what a tip is. A tip is something that you've seen, touched, or feel, and exists, and you're calling that lead in. Okay? When you're in Alaska, you've never been to Arizona before, there is nothing that you have to call into a tip line. Even if you think you got the case wrapped up, you have no reason to be calling that tip line. And I know that that's hurtful, and I know that people don't like to hear that, but I'm not here to pander to your feelings. I'm here to tell you the truth. Okay? So use those tip lines. If something is really eating at you and you just have to let law enforcement know, do it by email. Okay? Do it by text. Do not do it by phone call, because those phone calls are put above anything else. So those phone calls should only be for people that have true first-hand, second-hand, or third-hand knowledge of a situation. That's it. And it should be a lot of people from that general area. Now, if it's a family member from another state that, talked to their family member and has direct information about the crime, that's a lot different. Yeah, this person's never been in the state of Arizona, but their cousin lives in the state of Arizona and just confessed to the crime. I would say that would be warranted of a tip. Okay? You see where we're going? So I just want to give you guys ideas of what tips are, because sometimes people don't know, and people are like, should I call this in? Should I not call this in? If you absolutely must, my suggestion is emailing that. If you have no real direct knowledge and yours is speculation, or you're asking them, did you think about doing this? First of all, I can tell you law enforcement hates when the public comes in and says, did you think about doing this? Because 90% of the time they did. And if they chose not to, it's probably because somebody dropped the ball and they do not want it. And they just will not. So don't send them that. That's one of because I've talked to a lot of law enforcement across the country. And that is the one thing that they can't stand, is people calling in to their tip line for, saying, did you think about putting the helicopter up? It annoys the piss out of them. It would annoy the piss out of me. So don't make those calls. Please don't make those calls. But they're still looking for information. We're still looking for information. Let me put where everybody knows. They're still looking for information from law enforcement to release a little bit, just a little bit. At some point, someone is going to have the courage to make that call, he said. One phone call from someone who decides the reward money matters more than their silence is all it takes to bring law enforcement directly to the perp's front door. And that is what we're waiting on right here. This is where we're at. This is what we are waiting on right here, folks. We're waiting on that one person. I don't come here every day and try to find dynamic ways to have, conversations with you and talking points with you just to twiddle my thumbs. It is a science. The more we talk about it, the more we have her face on thumbnails, the more we have her name in titles, the more people are paying attention, the more it's top of mind. A lot of people don't realize how your brain works, your short-term memory versus your long-term memory, but it's always top of mind. When you do these things and you come here, the rest of your day, it's top of mind. Why is it so important? Remember, like when we're talking about Sebastian Rogers and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I think I saw him. Oh my gosh, I think I saw him. Why are they like that? Because we're talking about Sebastian Rogers so much that it's top of mind. It is top of mind so much that they get a glimpse of a child that may look like Sebastian and they whip their head around. Now, if we only talked about Sebastian once a week, when that child walked by, would they be whipping their head around? Probably not. Why? Because that's their short-term memory working. It's their short-term memory working. It's long-term, mid to long-term memory working. But it's the top of mind aspect. We're always talking about it. Therefore, it's always on your mind. Let me ask you guys this, and you guys are going to be embarrassed to raise your hand. I know you're going to be embarrassed to raise your hand, but you guys are going to be laughing when I say this because you know it's true. How many of you guys have been caught humming or singing along to our new intro song when we're not live? How many? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Why? Because it's top of mind. And I know you're doing it because I was in my kitchen the other morning, or yesterday morning. I was after our show went out, and I was just doing something. And then all of a sudden, I started bebopping to our intro song. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? In my head. In my head. There you go. See? That's your short term. It's top of mind. It's top of mind. I know. The reason why I brought this up, because I knew that this is going to happen, because I found myself doing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how many other people are doing the same thing? Oh my God. This is a good song. When you start bebopping, because I used to do that with The Good Day. I'd be just kind of in there, subliminal messaging. I told you some of you guys probably wouldn't raise your hand for it because you know, but you're still chuckling behind the scenes because you know you caught yourself bebopping to our song when we weren't live. Brainwashed. I'd like to say whooped in shape. We got you whooped in shape. We don't have you brainwashed. Just whooped in shape. No, I'm just joking. That's funny. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. You know, it's the top of mind stuff. It's the top of mind stuff. And that's where I truly believe that mainstream media does excel, is that top of mind, because we're talking about it, that it keeps it's front and center all day, every day. It's front and center. When you guys come here first thing in the morning and we're talking about Nancy Guthrie, or even the Bahamas, watch, you guys are going to be more interested now in the Bahamas story, because we're starting to talk about it. Ashley Banfield's starting to talk about it. We got this content creator starting to talk about this content creator started to talk about this content. I will not be going to the Bahamas. I realize that we need I have decided I am going to get a passport, because I just for the first time realized we could literally be going live streaming from the Bahamas, and Bullhorn Betty is not prepared for live streaming from the Bahamas. And I am very, very upset about the state of affairs of the Bullhorn Betty channel. I feel like we're just not up. Yeah. So I'm going to get the damn passport, okay? I'm not getting the international passport. I refuse to give I'm not going international. But, you know, the Bahamas is close enough that, you know, I should be out in front in the sun in like a bikini, or, well, maybe not in this 50-year-old body, maybe in a taquini, right? I should be out in a taquini, you know, giving the news with my Bullhorn Betty out in front of the Bahama, you know, the jail, right? And saying, you know, talking about the case, but we're not there. I don't have a passport. We're not going to be covering this case from the Bahamas. So I realized that this was a missed opportunity for this show. It was a missed opportunity for my skin. And so we will make sure that this missed opportunity does not happen again. Okay, so we will be getting the passport. I've made the decision. I will get a passport. And if you really want to help, if you really want all the help to find Nancy, what better person to spread the word than Savannah and her job? Yeah, I know there's a lot. There's a lot here, you know, and I don't want to keep beating up because she works for that company, you know. It's not her company, and they have a show to do, and she probably, you know, one, it's got to be hard to constantly try to do your job and then be reminded throughout the day about your mom missing. I mean, I can't imagine how detrimental mentally that would be all day long, right? So I kind of understand why they're not doing it daily. But I still think that she's there. They could be interviewing her, right? They could be doing little segments on how she's doing with her mom. And I think that would really be beneficial, not just for their views, but be beneficial for all of us too, because she would be, you know, we're not getting a whole lot from law enforcement, and she could, you know, eloquently find a way. Yes, get a passport. I'm not getting an international. I will never go international. I do not trust international. I know, like, there's places I'd love to go. Like, I'd love to go to Ireland. I'd love to go to Sweden. I'd love to go to Switzerland. I'd love to go to Scotland. I'd love to go to New Zealand and Australia. Like, there's a few, you know, places overseas that I want to go. But if I were to go to those, it would have to be strictly leisure. I would not be wanting to do anything with true crime. And I just don't trust, I don't trust other governments. I don't trust other countries. Okay? I'm a loudmouth American citizen. I trust no one. I trust no one. Are you just a little curious of what Ashley Vanfield will get upset at with the Bahama case? Is it the flower pots? No, I should stop. I've never, you know what I think is so comical is because we never see Ashley get upset about anything. And, you know, she's just like kind of like a straight talker. She just talks, you know, she tries to come off really sweet. You can kind of see she's got a mean streak in her. You can just tell. I can just tell with people, you know, what side. But at the end of the day, we don't really see her angry very much, and we don't see her throwing F-bombs around, you know? And so when we saw her just get so angry, she was angry over her bots. It was comical, you know? It was hard not to make it because she was so damn angry. Anyways, you guys got it. Deflowering the flower. I know. I couldn't help it. I died, okay? I died. She doesn't do, like, Bullhorn Betty does angry well. Like, you know, I come here, I can scream, I can get you guys all riled up. You know, it works for me. It doesn't work for her. It doesn't work for everybody. It really doesn't. And, you know, because she's got this mild, meek, you know, her personality's mild and meek. That's her persona. That's the persona that she's had. Mine's never been mild and meek. You know, mine's been very boisterous. I've got a very boisterous personality, and that's saying it lightly. That's saying it lightly, right? I know my worth. I own it. I own it. Okay, I own everything that I am. I make no apologies for being who I am. Okay, no apologies. Perfectly comfortable in this skin. Every now and again. Okay, I am human being, so I do falter, right? And I have my my glaring imperfections. But for the most part, the Bahamas is really not safe for females alone. I probably agree with that. I don't think any place in this world's safe for females alone. We are targeted, period. No matter where we are, whether we're in this country, whether we're in another country, females are targeted. We are a targeted commodity. We're property, you know, to the rest of the world. Anyways, one of the reasons why I don't like the rest of the world, right? I'm perfectly comfortable where I'm at. I like being in America. I don't really care to be anywhere else other than America. Just that. She was beautiful in that yellow dress, and she had her best friend right there. She just had to hold on to her best friend. I kind of felt that. So now we're kind of at the point where we're getting to the interview room. I got to get my notes here. So this is kind of where the show really does kind of start. We're already 2 hours into the show, right? So give me just a second. Let me bring this over here so I can read and see where we're at on this show so far. Okay, so we were hearing about that. They haven't. Okay, here it is. So we have no arrest. We've heard different things behind the scenes that the investigation is stalling. So we're hearing that the investigation is stalling. But it's helpful to go back, like to Chris, in the interview room to discuss those earlier press conference. So we're learning that with all the information we have now, it's helpful for all of us at a 3,000-foot level to come down to the ground and ask ourselves, based on our own individual training and experience, all the different feelings and thinking that you have related to this whole case. I've had problems, and I think everybody in this case has had some type of problems with the sequential things in relationships and the statements that were given. Like we're learning a lot of this stuff in the, kind of behind the scenes at the end of the time. We didn't hear about this at the beginning when all this stuff was transpiring. So let's recap what Savannah shared in her interview with Hoda. Hoda said, "Take me back to the first night. Savannah was in New York with her family when she got the call from her sister Annie. Savannah says that the sister thought that perhaps Nancy had a medical emergency during the night. Paramedics came to take her away, which assuming would account for the doors that were found open and the mom nowhere to be seen." So I put my first responders hat, put on my first responders hat before I was there. It's hard. So this is going to be statements. These are statements from, it looks like exact statements from Chris McDonough. And he's saying, let me put my investigator hat on, or my first responder hat on. Before I was in Homicide Bureau, I spent from 1982 to 1990, 8 years on the streets as a vice detective undercover, then a K-9 unit. When I got there, in my head, radio calls come in around 12 something in the afternoon. My mom is missing. Patrol Officer 101. You walk up. RP, what is that? RP says my mom's missing. I don't know what RP says. Responding person says, because it's not Annie, it says RP. Anyways, it says my mom is missing. Well, you know what's going on? The doors are propped open. There's blood on the porch. Everything that she has is here. We looked all around for her and decided to call all the hospitals to check if she had a medical event the night before. And so part of this transcript says, okay, here's reality. Station O, Unit 4. Can you check if paramedics responded to this address? Negative. We have no medical aid. Paramedics were out there last night. Were not out there last night at all. How do you know that? Because dispatch, who dispatches all medical units, said no medical responses in any way, shape, or form were at that location or in that area. Now, a phone call is made to the sister because they're still here. Remember, Savannah says it was chaos. The cops were there. We called all the hospitals. Okay, well, I'm going to call the hospitals. That's what Savannah said. They found out there were no hospitals. Now, we're going to listen to these in the transcript. Let me go ahead and pull these up in the transcript right now. These are at the very beginning, 11 minutes. The 3, we've been doing a lot. I don't think we need that one. Give me just a second. Let me find the transcript where I want to go. The narrative breakdown, we're going to be 637.
Logical sequences. As you know, as you've been following our channel here from day one, I've had a problem, and admittedly so, okay, about sequential things in relationship to how statements are taken, how statements are given. And the reason for that is the only thing I can fall back on, obviously, is my own life experience as well as my own professional work experience. That said, I thought to myself, okay, wait a minute. The sequence of this thing, if we go back and we look at, we look at, just the bouncing ball, and I'm only going to harp on this for a couple of minutes. If we just go back and look at the bouncing ball is that night, and we're going to watch the press conferences once again. Not all of it. I've cut it all up, but I've highlighted some stuff for all of us, and we've seen some stuff that nobody has caught yet anywhere in this investigation, at least publicly. Nobody's, the news media is not talking about it, all these other things. And it's all.
I'm interested because I know we've talked about some stuff on this show that was never picked up. So I'm interested in finding out what they found and whether we've talked about it or not. I feel like some of the stuff that he's brought up, we've talked about on this show, but we'll find out.
Always neat when we put information out there, it becomes, kind of like other people will look into it, and then, it kind of takes a life of its own. But that said, we're going to nail a couple of things tonight that you're going to go, oh, crap.
And we all heard it, but, the first time around, but going back now with a little bit of distance at day 68, things kind of jumped out at us that didn't originally.
Yeah. And so we have to presuppose now. Okay, remember the first assumption again in this whole thing, it's an ambulance pickup. Okay.
So we're going back, if you guys haven't understood, they're going back from the lens of some of the statements that Annie and Savannah made. Savannah made these on her interview with Hoda, and she talks about the family feeling like the back doors were propped open. This had to have been some type of medical event. And then we find out it wasn't a medical event because obviously we see a masked intruder at the front door, but that didn't come out until almost 9 days later.
That's the first narrative. Okay. So the first conversation, let's just hypothesize here and play devil's advocate. Not that I like to play the devil's advocate at all. I'd rather play,
right,
the other side. But unfortunately, in this situation, I'm going to do that. Let's presuppose. Phone call comes in. Mom's missing. She didn't show up for church. Boom. Activation. Family activation. Go over there. Okay. And doors are propped open. Blood's on the porch. We don't know how somebody got into the house. The sheriff won't even talk about it. Okay. And the first thing you do to your 84-year-old grandmother or your mother and an 84-year-old woman who can barely walk 50 feet on a good day to the mailbox, okay, is jump to the assumption that, oh, it must be a medical situation. So therefore, I must call all of the hospitals.
Now let's just recap. I mean, I think most of you know this, but Chris is talking about what Savannah shared in her interview with Hoda a few weeks ago. And Hoda said, take me back to that first night. And Savannah was saying what she was doing in New York City with her family when she got the call from her sister Annie. And in what Savannah relayed, and I think we're going to see that again, we're going to watch it again. Savannah says, this scenario that the sister thought that perhaps Nancy had a medical emergency during the night. Paramedics came to take her away, which assuming would account for the doors that were found propped open, and mom nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, so I put on my first responders hat. And,
There it is.
Before I was in the homicide.
As you guys can see, I was reading my notes that I had for the verbatim stuff. And so here is the verbatim stuff that I was reading to you that I wanted you to hear. And we're going to be going over to the dispatch reality here in just medical assumptions first, and then in dispatch reality. Give it just a second. I think we're already into the second clip. So hopefully it won't roll over too much. We'll be stopping this in just a few more moments.
Bureau, I spent, from 1982 to 1990, 8 years on the street. I spent 2 of those 8 years as a vice detective undercover. And then I got transferred into the K-9 unit. And I spent, from 1986 to 1990, almost 4 years as a dog handler. And that was the best job on the earth, let me tell you, because you're in the middle of everything. So when I got there, okay, in my head, I was like, oh, okay, radio call comes out, whatever it was, 12:00 something in the afternoon. And in that radio call, it's, my mom's missing. Now, I'm going to go into Patrol Officer 101. Okay. I'm there, 1097, on the scene. You walk up, the RP, whoever that is, the family in this case.
Reporting party.
Well, my mom's missing.
That's
okay,
what the RP
well,
stands
what's
for,
going
reporting
on?
Party.
Well, the doors are propped open. There's blood on the porch. Everything is here. And we looked all around for her, and we decided to call all the hospitals to check to see if there was a medical event the night before. We're assuming it's the night before because what time did you drop her off? Well, blah, 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 9:50. Okay. Here's reality. Station O, this is, Unit 4. What do you got? Can you check to see if the paramedics responded to such and such an address? Negative state, 3 King. That was my old call sign when I was a dog handler, 3 King. Negative 3 King. We had no medical 1145. There are medical aid.
So they've checked. They've confirmed nobody came to that house for a medical event. So we're going to get down to, I've got to go to 18, 14, 1431.
Before we kick into that gear is Letitia Stausch, who killed her son.
Stepson. Yeah.
Gannon, right? Who killed her boy. I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but check this out in her arrest affidavit. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Can you guys believe this?
Let me go ahead and read it for people who are watching on their phone and it's too small to read. Okay, so Chris, tell us where this is from, and then I'll go ahead and read it.
It's from her original arrest affidavit. So this is a case, as we all know, we all followed it. Linda from It's a Crime absolutely tore this case apart. Okay, but there's one paragraph in the arrest affidavit when they went after her, and guess what it says? Honey, would you read that?
Okay. It says a tip line was established and investigators received hundreds of tips and leads from the public by virtue of email and telephone calls. As part of this tip line, 2 ransom notes were received by email demanding money in the form of Bitcoin in exchange for Gannon's return. Because remember, they were looking for him.
Yep.
He was considered missing.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I think this is super important because we know what happened in Gannon's case. We know that Letitia Stout just recently was provided a new trial. So we're about to do a 2.0 of this trial. What a sad situation, to say the least. Very, very, very sad. It seems like something that should never have happened. She should not have a new trial right now. Somebody dropped the ball in a major, major way. But the ransom notes, very interesting. We also have ransom notes in this case as well, and yet it wasn't a ransom. And those ransom notes were never even part of. We never talked about ransom when it came to Gannon Stout ever. So very interesting, because there are scammers all over this world that are doing this when we have missing person cases, just to let you know. And remember the one kid that was missing that went out and wandered and got lost? He was a foreign exchange student, and somebody tricked him and had him go out there, and they lost him for like days. And while he was out there in the wilderness, lost for days, they were hitting up his family overseas for ransom. I don't know if you guys remember that. That just happened a few years ago.
Investigators took steps to validate these ransom notes, including resolving and geolocating the Internet Protocol IP addresses from the email headers and requesting subscriber information from the Internet Service Providers, ISP, that hosted those IP addresses. One of these ransom notes was sent from a foreign-based email account that's accessible by multiple individuals. Investigators were unable to trace the user of the IP addresses and believe the ransom notes to be fraudulent and strictly designed as a scheme to receive money.
This sounds very familiar with what we are dealing with in the Nancy Guthrie case. I do not believe the ransom notes. This is a great find. Thank you, Chris McDonough, and to his wife. This is a very important piece to this overall talking point of these ransom notes. So very thankful for that. So where's our next spot here? Looks like 1823, and this is a ransom pattern, 1823.
And remember, we always talk about you've got to look for similarities. You've at least got to think outside the box and say, okay, well, wait a minute. Has this ever happened with a grandmother? And the answer is no. We've never seen it happen with a grandmother. But what we do know now, it has happened with a child. And it
Interesting.
happened in Gannon's case.
And that's a pretty recent case.
That's a pretty recent case. Now,
and this is becoming, I think this is becoming an uptick. I think we probably have more ransoms than we know in these cases, but they are all kind of put to the wayside because they are determined to be fraudulent. And I think that's what we're going to find out, because these elements from Gannon Stout and Nancy Guthrie, although we're dealing with a teenage boy and an elderly woman, they still have, as far as the ransom notes, they can be compared here. because they sound very similar, in my opinion, just based on what we're hearing here. Now, we can't just, dissect them because we don't see them, and law enforcement hasn't published them, so we don't see the character of the person writing this. We haven't been able to determine whether this was written by ChatGPT or some other thing, or if this was written by the subject themselves. Are they really that smart? Are they, do we have a brains and bronze situation here? Typical of organizations, one person's the muscle, one person's the brains of the operation type of thing. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But these ransom patterns, I don't think we can, not look at. So excuse me just for a second. I'm going to dip and let you guys listen to the rest of this.
The good news is they got some of they were able to peel back the layers, and they got to, that the emails were coming from overseas. Okay. So why is that important? Because you don't want to get caught up. Okay. You don't want to get caught up in the noise. Because if you get caught up in the noise, i.e. over here, remember we talked about 2 trains that left the station. One train that left the station is the FBI, and the second train that left the station is Pima County Sheriff's Office. I said from the very beginning, behind the scenes, and we had the panel on here to talk about it, behind the scenes, there's a lot of this going on between the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Office. Okay? And we're going to show you some of that in real time tonight. So I want to go back to a couple of things. We're going to play this through, and then we're going to jump deep into the deep end, into the water tonight.
Okay, we're not going to go jump deep into the water tonight. We've got a lot of different areas that we must discuss. And the Savannah interview, we've already heard that clip. Okay, 2232.
And that didn't make any sense. We thought
the back doors were propped open, and that didn't make any sense. Remember, we talked about cognitive dissonance. Okay? She's trying to make sense of what was told to her. And the other thing that I want to point out tonight as we keep going down this lane here, who is creating the narrative? The sheriff is going to call them the family. But really, it's Nancy's daughter and the other family members. Okay? Now, this is coming really right. I mean, this is coming from the horse's mouth. Okay? We're not making this up. This is our opinion. This is what we're listening to in the public domain. Okay? And now we're applying some analysis, thinking out of the box analysis. And we're not saying it's right or wrong. We're just saying even Savannah, didn't think it was right.
It didn't sound right to her.
It didn't sound right to her. And so the question then is, okay, well, what would have sounded right?
That's a great question. We don't ever think about the opposite. If something doesn't sound right, what would sound right? I don't think that would have been a question I asked. So very interesting stuff here. Very interesting stuff. Let's keep going.
That's the next question that any logical investigator would apply to a narrative. Okay?
they came and there was a stretcher and they took her out the back. But her phone was there and her purse was there and all her things. And it just didn't make any sense. So
it didn't make any sense. So what she does is she fills that gap with a what if. Maybe they came and, took her out the back. Okay. Now, mind you, she's only being told this by her family member. Okay. She's Savannah, who's in New York City and is in deep pain here, is being told a story about what she believes happened by another family member. And Savannah's going months later, it didn't make any sense. It made no sense. Even she's saying it on national television.
Annie and Tommy had already called all the hospitals, but then I'm like, I'm going to call the hospital. So then I started calling the hospitals, and the police were there and talking to her at the same time, and it was just chaos.
Yeah.
And
okay, so again, the narrative.
And for just detail purposes, I saw somebody say that Annie called the hospitals while the law enforcement was there. I don't think that's the case, because it sounds like, just based on this statement here, that Annie had already previously called the hospitals. Law enforcement was there, and now Savannah is going to call the hospital. So I wanted to make that distinction, because I did hear some people. I think those are hair-splitting things. I don't think they're details that really make heads, that are going to move the needle too much. But just for clarification, that's my understanding. But again, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Is a family member starts calling all the hospitals. Okay, so let's play this out. All right. You get over there. Mom's not there. You see the door propped open. What's your first instinct?
Somebody was here.
Okay.
Or
I can tell you that's usually your first instinct. I'm sorry, it is. I can remember there was a guy I was dating, and I remember I was coming back from a trip or something, and they wanted me to drop by the house, see them before I headed home. And I figured, I've already got a bag packed and everything like that, because I'm coming back from a trip. It'd be perfect. I could probably wash some clothes there, blah, 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 blah. And I remember pulling up, getting out of the car, getting my bag, walking in the house, and something was out of place. And I know this guy. This guy's not moving a damn thing. And something was out of place. And I remember, I just looked at him. I said, another woman was here. And I turned around and walked out of the house, got in my car, and left. And that is a true story. I believe that you feel, even if it's not your own home, if it's a home that and intimately, when something doesn't feel right. And I have to think that there had been spidey senses going off all over the place at this point. And it's just it could be a smell. It could be something being moved. It could be something like flower pots keeping the doors open. Maybe they know for a fact that their mother has never used the flower pots to prop open the doors. It might have been that. They didn't know what was making them feel uneasy. They just knew something was making them feel uneasy. It may have been just something like that. Who knows?
How did these doors get propped open?
All right. And then what? It's your mom. She's 86.
Yeah, my mom's 86.
It's your mom.
If the doors were propped open, I'd be on 911 immediately.
Right.
Okay.
That's the way it would be with me.
And then they go in. Obviously, they would call her, look for her.
Yep.
You hope they went to the front door and saw the blood evidence that was there. And we're told, and then they called 911.
I mean, the chat. What do you guys think? What's your first instinct? What's your first instinct?
Based on everything I would have called.
Mom's missing. You've got, first of all,
How many of you right out the gate, you guys pull up here, something ain't right, doors are propped open, mom's not in her bed, everything looks very normal, but then you go to the front door and realize there's blood at the front door. What is your first inclination? I'd have to think that the first inclination of an 84-year-old person seeing that, the house immaculate, nothing really disturbed outside of the back doors being open and seeing blood. I think your first assessment would be, was there a medical event? Maybe we need to call the hospital. Maybe she had an ambulance come here and forgot to call us. what is the first instinct that you would have based on that? I don't know if based on what I'm seeing there, my first instinct would be that somebody broke in and kidnapped my elderly mom. I mean, I don't know if that's really, even with the back doors being open and me knowing my mother would never leave the back doors open, I don't know if the first thing that I'm thinking of is my mom was met with foul play. I mean, I'm calling law enforcement because something doesn't feel right and my mom's missing and I need help. But I don't know if at that moment, at that split second, that I would truly believe she was violated, that a crime was committed. I'm not sure if I would go there. Yeah, I would have some spidey senses going off, like something's not right. And, I'd be almost in denial. Like, this is not happening to me. My thought wouldn't be, yeah, that's it, Bass Girl. My thought wouldn't be abduction. It just wouldn't. I'm sorry. It's just, that would be the furthest thing from my mind. I would be thinking of all the reasonable things. My mom lives in a safe neighborhood. She's lived there for decades. I see blood here. My mother must have injured herself. She must have called law enforcement and didn't want to worry us kids. How many moms do that, right? How many moms get injured or something happens and they're like, I didn't want to bother you. I know you got your family. I didn't want to worry you, honey. Right? Our moms and dads do that to us all the time, don't they? And it irritates the crap out of us, especially if we have older, parents that are aging. It gets a little frustrating because they never want to tell you when something, because they don't want to worry you. Actually, I think it's like they don't want to worry you to put them in a home, right? If they tell you about these things, like there's been, I remember I was working for this lady and she begged me. She's like, I watched her fall, so I helped her up. I was working on this. Please don't tell my daughter. Don't tell my daughter I fell. Please don't tell my daughter I fell. Like, she was so adamant not telling her daughter that she fell. She didn't injure herself. I mean, she could have. I broke her fall, but she was so scared that because her daughter, I think, was about to put her in a home. And she was literally terrified of her daughter knowing she fell again. So I didn't tell her daughter, probably should have, but she's my client, not her daughter. And, I work for my clients. I didn't know her daughter. I didn't have her daughter's phone number. Would I have called her daughter? In all honesty, I don't know. I really don't. She asked me not to. She was the one paying me. I'm listening to my boss. So, but there is that. And I wanted to make sure that people knew of that as well. But how many people, I guess you guys have already answered. I just wouldn't, I don't think I would have immediately thought that she met with foul play based on what they're seeing at the house. I mean, if something was tipped over, if there was some type of altercation, some type of struggle in the house, that would be my immediate first thought. But what we're learning now after the facts is that this house was immaculate. There was no signs of struggle, no signs of assault, no sign. I mean, outside of the blood, there was nothing. There was nothing. And that to me is almost scarier than anything. That outside of that little bit of blood, whatever altercation she did, they would have never known she was abducted. They would have, if this was any other case in any other family other than Savannah Guthrie's family, we would be looking at this case as if this woman wandered off. And I just want to make sure you guys understand that, because they would have not gone the additional steps of reaching out to Google and trying to find out what Google can find for them about this camera. They would have never done that to any normal case. That was something that was done because this was a Guthrie case, and the FBI was called in immediately because Miss Savannah Guthrie has some very powerful friends, including Senator Mark Kelly. So she was able to get the wheels moving very quickly when she found out her mom was missing. She called every single favor this lady has ever earned in her 30 years in the biz.
You've got 2 points of concern. The first point of concern is you're getting a phone call from her girlfriends who say, hey, your mom didn't show up for church. What do you mean? Your mom did not come to the service.
Well, it was a gathering at her girlfriend's home where they watched a recording of the service. So it's a weekly planned, basically it's not really an appointment, but it's a gathering with her, at least one or two other girlfriends.
Okay.
So she never showed up to her girlfriend's house where she always does.
So on Sunday, we all got that. We were very confused at the beginning, but now we got a good understanding that there's a group of older ladies that meet every Sunday and worship together. They come to the home, and it was because the whole world was scared of COVID, and then they got into this routine, and this is what they felt safe doing, and so that gave them the opportunity to worship as well as keep themselves away from a lot of people that could make them sick. I'm not really into all of the COVID stuff, as many of you guys know, but either way, people are very scared for their safety and concerned about that. So we want to identify she had concerns, she took precautions, and that's why she went to church. So it was much smaller gathering than, say, at a church. And so they were able to identify that she did not show up when she was supposed to. She's probably one of those people that show up every single Sunday without fail. If you know anything about Miss Guthrie, she's always at church. She's always with their group praying to the Lord. That is her she's a very faithful woman. This is a very important day for her. So when they expected her and she didn't show up, we go through the process of what might her friends do. Well, her friends will probably most likely try to get a hold of her. And then when she didn't show up, they probably waited a few more minutes to see if she was just running late. And when she didn't show up, after a concerning amount of time, I'm absolutely confident that's when they said, look, your mom has not showed up here. We've tried to reach out to her. She's not answering her phone. We're a little concerned. They probably didn't want to they didn't call 911 because they thought there was probably a good explanation for it, and they didn't want to jump the gun. So they called the family, which is a normal process. The family goes over there and sees some things that are concerning to them. They go ahead and call law enforcement. I'm sure they're thinking it's nothing. I'm sure they're thinking, even in the back of their brain, that they're overreacting, that this is all explainable, that they're going to find out their mom, went to the hospital or to a doctor, something happened, that they're blowing all of this out of proportion because they've lived in this house for decades. Never, not one thing ever happened to them inside this home. So I'm sure that cannot be the first thing that they run to, that something majorly happened inside this home. Something had to bring Cameron to that determination. And I'm still curious as to what, because again, Annie didn't make that leap. It was Cameron that made that leap. And what provoked Cameron to make that leap from something happening to their mother to her being taken for ransom, of all things? And then we find out this whole ransom scenario where people overseas are trying to extort ransom Bitcoin money from cases. We're finding out this is happening in more cases than not. We're just not hearing about it because the ransoms are fraudulent. And then when we hear the terminology that are used in the ransom note for, say, Gann and Stout, we're starting to say, wait a minute, this sounds like a lot of about the same of what they've got in the ransom note for Miss Guthrie. And it really does start solidifying our belief that these ransom notes are a red herring, despite what Miss Savannah Guthrie believes, and despite what people in talking heads are saying. Yes, the FBI has to take these seriously. They don't have a choice to say that these things. They have to follow this lead through. It doesn't make it legitimate. Just because they're following the lead doesn't make it legitimate. And look at Gann and Stout. They were never able to determine who it was that sent it, but they could determine it was sent from overseas. There is nobody from overseas that is going to have the person. It was a scam. And this is a scam too, in my opinion. Hey, Mama, you're doing a wonderful job, Betty. Oh, thank you, love. I appreciate you. Okay, so now let's get over to the next one. The next one is talking points. Talking points. Did I already set it up yet? Yes, I did. Okay, so talking points.
Medical transport from this home to any hospital.
Right. Then why relay that information to her sister?
Why is it a talking point an hour or two later on the phone to Savannah?
Correct.
That's a great question.
That is the exact thought process.
So we've got a lot of people that have dealt with homicide investigations. We're kind of, the way that the media and everybody wants to talk about us as armchair detectives, right? We're the armchair detectives. So derogatory, so disrespectful, but that absolutely doesn't equate to what we are. We analyze these things, and we need to be considered analysis, right? Not armchair detectives, right? We analyze things. And at the end of the day, the talking heads keep coming back about these suspicious statements that are made. And do they mean anything? We don't know. We hear that law enforcement, Pima County Sheriff, has cleared the immediate family. That means Savannah, her husband, Annie, her husband, Cameron, his wife. Those people have all been cleared of any involvement very early on in the case. Many people do not agree with it because we have a lot of questions. And I think that a lot of the, especially homicide detectives like Chris McDonough, have been picking up on and have frowned upon this clearing of any person in the case. And the reason why, it's not just this case, it's the next case. It's because they don't like clearing people, and when you got sheriffs clearing people prematurely, it applies a level of pressure across all law enforcements that are dealing with cases similar to this, that are now being pressured to clear people. Because yes, sometimes you do have to clear people prematurely. You know that they're not involved, but you don't want to say it because you don't want to, you don't want to eliminate people in the sea. You don't want to focus the audience or the public in any one direction. So that's really why they do it. It's not because of the person. Law enforcement has no use of a person that's not involved in the case. So why would they be screaming it from the rooftops that this person's been cleared, they have no involvement in the case? It's because they don't want to spook anybody. When you start eliminating a lot of people, it starts showing the people that are left. And law enforcement doesn't like that. They like to clear people after somebody's been arrested because of those factors, as being some of the factors. There are other reasons as well. But because they're clearing this, it's pissing a lot of law enforcement off because it's premature. They shouldn't be clearing until they have a subject, until they have a suspect. And they're on one hand telling us we don't know who we're looking for, and on the other hand, we know it's not these guys. And it's like, well, how do you know when we don't even have the evidence? We don't even have the DNA back. What are you really using to clear these people with? So it always makes the public question law enforcement's ability to clear these people because of this thing in our brain that, this preconditioned notion that has been installed in our brain from law enforcement that we have to have somebody in custody in order to identify that nobody else is a party. I don't believe that. I think that they need to be clearing people a lot sooner than they do. It is not fair for somebody that has nothing to do with these cases to have a freaking people with pitchforks knocking on their door. It's just not right. It's just not right. And it's often the case. I'm sorry. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to ruin people's lives. You just don't get to do that. Law enforcement, I don't care. You can do your case. People, they make these stupid rules and try to justify their despicable behavior in law enforcement. And then they try to tell us that it's for our own good. I'm so sick and tired of that. I'm so sick and tired of it. If you know somebody has no involvement in a case, clear them. There is no usefulness of keeping them and dangling them in front of the world as being a suspect in 2026 with all this social media stuff. You were able to do that when it was just mainstream media. But now that we have social media and these cases grow legs and arms and start walking and talking all by themselves, you can no longer have that policy and practice in today's society. You just can't. Yet so many law enforcement bodies keep adopting that horrible policy that I totally disagree with. And I disagree with it because of these reasons. People are in danger when they are, we got crazy wackadoos. Remember, the United States of America has closed down all of our insane asylums. Okay? It doesn't mean we don't have insane people walking amongst us. It just means the government ain't keeping them away from us. Okay? So you got all these wackadoos out here. And then you're sitting here taking and putting people in front of these wackadoos. And then you've got people stalking these people thinking that because you got people that aren't right upstairs. I think it's a horrible practice in 2026. If somebody is truly cleared, they need to be identified as cleared. I don't care how much it cost you your case or anything like that. It shouldn't cost you anything. If they have nothing to do with your case, eliminating them from the case has nothing to do with your case. It has nothing to do with your case. But in today's society, you cannot keep putting these people and putting a target on their back. And with social media, that can be a dangerous situation. And law enforcement needs to start clearing people a lot sooner, in my opinion. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that. It is only in their policies and procedures and their messed up way of thinking that think this is a good practice. Whoever has put that in their brain has really solidified it in their brain, even though it's horseshit. It is horseshit. It is horseshit. So these things, as we're learning from Chris McDonough, even Savannah acknowledges that what she was hearing did not make sense. This whole ransom to the rest of us does not make sense. Just like this being a robbery gone wrong does not make sense. We're dealing with something much different than what is being put in our brains. I don't know what we're dealing with here, but I know that this is not a robbery gone wrong. Okay? And I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time believing that this is a ransom. I'm having a hard time believing that this is a ransom. Just because one of her children believe it is because she refuses to believe anything else is not my problem. Something happened to Savannah's mom. She's in complete denial. This is absolutely hitting closer to home, and none of them want to acknowledge that. None of them. They're in complete denial. I am not in complete denial, but I'm not going to run my show on these ransom notes until we have a little more information. In my opinion, these ransom notes are a red herring. They are not legitimate. They are not real. This is not a ransom. And if this is truly a ransom, law enforcement needs to proffer some real receipts, because this does not make sense even over 60 days later. What are we on? Almost 70 days? We're at 69 days. Today. 69 days. 69 days. And not one law enforcement body has ever come to us to acknowledge any of these ransom notes could even be legitimate. Could. Not are. Not one of them has ever even come up here to convince us that even one of these could be legitimate. Not one. I don't believe them. Because now we're finding out they're happening in almost every single one of our cases. Even Gannon Stout had ransom notes that were similar in nature to the ones that were reported in Nancy Guthrie's case. It's pretty concerning. It's pretty concerning. And then, of course, they go into the press conference from the sheriff and the intense scrutiny that the sheriff is facing. The radio protocols. We'll go over here to the radio protocols.
Okay, and which in all of my years, I spent 13 years in homicide. I never had talking points from a victim's family. Ever. Do you know why? Right? Common sense. What if they're the suspects? What if it's Letitia Stas? And I'm reading talking points on behalf of Letitia. Mm-hmm. On behalf of Barry Morphew. Mm-hmm. We didn't hear the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, get up and say, on behalf of Barry Morphew, I just want to make sure I get all my talking points. I don't do well with a script. Okay.
I know, right?
What?
Everybody was like, what, when Chris Nano said that?
And I was like, this is crazy. So let me get this right. The night before, we found the doors propped open, all this narrative. The next morning, he's got talking points for the family.
And he calls it a script.
Script. So the family gave him this. Now that we're learning that original thing, the family gave him that.
Well, wait a minute. Actors have a script.
Yes, they do.
More than one person has a script. Did everybody get together and write a bunch of talking points and say, this is the script? This is what
Yeah. This investigation has been fumbled from the very beginning. And even, it sounds like even Savannah Guthrie has put her hands on the scales of justice. She wants her will to be known, not the investigator. She's not willing to acknowledge she doesn't know what the hell happened to her mother and to sit down and shut up yet. Not to be rude to Savannah, but she needs to sit down and shut up for a little bit. Because we all think that this is a lot closer than it is. And yet she's out here still, it's becoming hard. I understand she's struggling, but now we're finding out that she's literally giving the sheriff talking points for her family as reported information. And we're now finding out about this. I've got problems with that. I'm not sure about you, but I certainly have problems with that.
we're going to deliver to the media?
Well, and here's my question. Is there a lawyer behind the scenes? And if so, I'm sure we'll probably get an email. And guess what? You're going to be a guest on our show. Okay? If you send me an email saying, hey, you know, whatever, no, you're going to be invited here. In fact, we'd love to have you on the show because I want to see those talking points.
But even if there isn't, we know Savannah has a security team. Mm-hmm. Okay. Even if we don't, why is he delivering talking points for the family?
Yep.
What happened?
Why are there talking points for the family?
Happened to the head chief law enforcement officer for the Puma County get up there and say, we've got a missing woman. Here's the facts of the case. We think it's criminal. If you've got Nancy, you better watch out. We're coming for you, punk. You know, words to that effect.
Grady Judd.
Grady Judd's from my state. Everybody likes Grady Judd. I mean, but we have a lot of great sheriffs across the state of Florida that don't put up with any crap. And they tell you just like it is. Don't come monkey messing in Florida. We will put bullets in you. Okay? We will send you home in a body bag, and we do not stand away from that. Every single one of the sheriffs will tell you the same thing, unless they're in Osceola or Orange County. You don't come monkeying around with Florida. Not only do we unleash our law enforcement on you, we have a lot of packing Floridians here that don't play. There's a lot of people just like me. We will put a boot in your ass, and that's just the Florida way. So if you guys are sick and tired of living the way you're living, and you say, hey, you know, Florida sounds like my kind of state, well, you're welcome here. If you're running from a state that has problems, don't bring those problems to our state. Okay? That's the rules. So if you guys want to come here and live here and hang out here and enjoy our laws here, perfect. Come on. Come one, come all. But don't you dare start trying to change them because you don't like them. If you don't like pew-pews, Florida, Texas, we ain't for you. Okay? We ain't for you. Go find a place in Massachusetts. I'm sure you'll be happy in Massachusetts. Ask the real me too. She fled. So go to one of those states. Okay? Go to Pennsylvania. Go to Maryland. Go to Vermont. You know, go anywhere. But don't come to Florida. Don't go to Texas. We are gun-toting, gun-packing people in these states. Okay? And we have a don't mess with me attitude. Right? Because we're all just comfortable in our own skin. And if we're not, we got pretty much a loaded gun on the side of our hip. Right? So just don't come here monkeying around because Florida doesn't take it. You can hear, I know it's satire all over about us putting bullets in everybody, but in reality, we don't put bullets in everybody, but we let you know that we have no problem doing it. We try not to, but just like this person getting an eviction notice in California, what ended up happening to him? He got the wrong end of a bear cat. That had to have been pretty damn painful if you ask me. All over just trying to get evicted. It's not worth it, folks. It's just not worth it, Texachusetts. They are turning. They are turning. They are turning. They are turning. All right, let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. So what else do we have here? Conference red flags. We already got them. Ransom timing. Yeah, we've already talked about that. Big questions. Key questions. Who created the talking points? Why medical narrative persists after dispatch disproof? And how did the doors get propped open? What did 911 callers say? Who benefits from this confusion, folks? Who benefits from this confusion? Somebody benefits from this. Now, people ask me, why was she taken? I don't know why she was taken. But whoever did this, I don't think did this for money, folks. Because the way they did all of this is not the fastest way to moolah. It's actually a very slow way to moolah. This right here was something different. This had nothing to do with money. And maybe that's what's so clever about the ransom notes. Maybe that is what is so clever about the ransom notes. I do not believe this entire case with Nancy Guthrie has anything to do with money. Everybody thinks it has to do with money. Just like when they went and got Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, everybody said, oh, it's for the oil. And I was the only person out of all the professionals that said, no, this has shit to do with the oil. This has nothing to do with the oil. Just like Iran has nothing to do with the oil. It's being talked about the oil because of the Strait of Hormuz. That has nothing to do with it. If you notice anything, what is happening here? The whole thing with Venezuela was about the voting machines and disrupting the bad actors because they were the facilitators. They got a lot of money from Russia, from Iran, from China. Venezuela did, to wreak havoc across the world with these voting machines. Not just here in the United States, but all across the world. And so he was an important key factor. Yeah, we had him on the drug charges, but it had nothing to do with the drugs either. It had nothing to do with the oil. It had nothing to do with the drugs. It had to do with the voting machines. Then when they started to attack Iran, I knew it had nothing to do with the oil there. When when they went after Iran, I saw the play. I knew exactly what the play was. As soon as they did it, I told my best friend, this has nothing to do with the oil. This is to weaken China and Russia. Because these are their thugs. These are their worldly thugs. We have several communist states that help Russia and China. Who are those states? Think about it. Venezuela, Iran, Cuba. Now, what did we learn? We took the president of Venezuela. We bombed the shit out of Iran, taking their entire leadership out. And we're talking with the communist regime of Cuba to take over their country. So now you take the communist states, these illicit, murderous regimes all over the world, and you kibosh them. We just weakened the shit out of China. We just weakened the shit out of Russia. We just took their thug legs out from under them. It had nothing to do with the oil. It still has nothing to do with the oil. It has to do with the power and what they were planning on doing to the American people that nobody knows anything about. That's why we took the president out of Venezuela. That's why we executed the president of Iran. And we are telling Cuba, either play by our rules or you're next. We're not playing with this world. We are the greatest country that this world has ever known. Thank God we're not thugs. And we only want world peace. Can you imagine the type of power that America could have if we were thugs? There would be nobody safe in this world, ever, from the Americans. Thank God we're a Christian nation. Thank God we want to uplift other nations. Thank God that's the state of our country. Because I can tell you right now, we're not playing with the communist regimes at all. And if you guys think it has something to do with oil, you guys are entirely too small-minded. It's much bigger than that. As soon as they went after Iran and they executed the leaders, I knew exactly what this was about. And it has squat to do with oil. So, guys, you may not understand what's going on, but I can promise you It's to make the world safer. It is to truly make the world safer. And please trust and believe that. Please trust and believe that. So if you guys think that he's in the pocket of China and Russia, then explain why he did what he did. Because by taking Nicholas out, by taking the Iranian leader out, he just weakened the shit out of Russia and China. And that is a great day for America. All right, guys, rock it out with your coffee beans out. We got a lot to go over, but at the end of the day, it does look like, this ransom note, in my assessment, it sounds like people, all the professionals, even law enforcement, are questioning this ransom note. They're questioning who could have done this. They're upset that the families had so much power over talking points from the sheriff, but it does show corruption. I still am not on board with the family had anything to do with this. I think that the reason why they gave him talking points is to diffuse, because the family didn't have any involvement in this, but because of the way he was doing it made the family look so ultra suspicious. I'm not willing to accuse the family, because me in my heart and soul, after everything I've looked at and reviewed, I'm not seeing the family being responsible for this. Okay, I'm just not. We can make leaps all day long, but it comes down to factual information, and the bottom line is we're not seeing money problems. I mean, people are talking that they have money problems, but we're not seeing the money problems. We have no evidence of money problems. We have zero evidence of gambling or money problems from gambling. We have zero evidence. Show me a receipt that this man has a debt. You don't. You know what you guys send me? You send me videos that somebody says this man has debt. But you don't send me anything that shows this man has debt. Just somebody saying this man has debt. So we don't have the receipts for everything that's been put in your brains as to why it has to be the Guthrie family. And everything that I've reviewed, they're not having that type of financial problems. He doesn't have that type of gambling problems. They're not having that type of financial issues that are going to rise to the level of taking their family member out. They like to speed. They like to be on their phone. They don't like to stop at stop signs. They're hippie, salt of the earth people. But that's the crux of this immediate family. Now, outside of this immediate family, somewhere out there is where I'm living. Okay, that's where I'm at. So we got Savannah, her brother, and her sister, and their family. That's here. Okay, I'm on the outside of them because I believe something on the outside of them. Now, Cameron has kind of, I think Cameron has some explaining to do, not like he's done anything, not that type of explaining. But I think he has some explaining to do because I would like to understand what made him believe that his mom was abducted for ransom. It's so far from what we as normal people. Is 857 in here? Good morning, 857. It's nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. To me, it feels like I don't know. How can I articulate this well? Like, I feel like the family's not involved, that they are legitimately cleared. I think they've all passed the smell test. I think that their alibis are strong on each and every one of them. First of all, I believe that, Savannah, as well as her brother, Savannah was in New York with her family. I believe Cameron was in Vermont with his family. And then, of course, it's Annie and Tommaso 10 minutes away from Nancy's house. But when it comes to Cameron, it's not that I think that he's responsible. I just want to understand what led him to that conclusion. What led him to believe that his mother was abducted for ransom? And at what time did he come up with that? Was it after he had already, made it to Arizona when he told his sister that? Or was it before he ever got there? Was this within hours of them finding out their mother was missing? Because these things do matter. Like, if he thought this after he came and saw the house, maybe it was because everything was so undisturbed except the blood at the front door. Maybe that's what made him, because he's in counterintelligence. Maybe he's seen something like this before overseas. And maybe that just, snapped him and like, oh my gosh, I've seen this before. This is what it was, So was it something like that? Did his sister have him maybe on a video conference where she was going around the house, which again, if they thought it was criminal, why is she moving around? She's contaminating the crime scene, but they didn't know it was a crime scene at the time. Maybe she went around the house with her brother and her brother was looking at everything and maybe he saw something to determine that. We do not know what led Cameron to make that assessment. So that's why I think we need to hear from him. Not because he needs to explain himself, because he did something to his mom, but he needs to explain himself as to why he came to that conclusion so early on, especially, I don't want to compare him to law enforcement because we've learned so much about law enforcement being green and not being highly educated in their field. Unfortunately, it's not their fault. They had poor training. They don't have good leaders. It is what it is. It's the dynamic and in the low morale of the department. But at the end of the day, they were so far off of what this could be, even in light of the blood at the front door, where they are saying that this woman that could barely walk wandered off. It made no sense. So what, even if I did believe a crime was committed here, I would have never ran to the assumption that it was a ransom. Maybe a burglary gone wrong, maybe a homicide, maybe an SA, a sexual assault scenario, something on those lines. Maybe that would be the scenario. But in all fairness, that's not what we're dealing with here. They're saying that this is a ransom, but nobody is voting. There's no evidence that this ransom is legitimate, and we believe it's from overseas. Who overseas would have had the wherewithal or the opportunity to kidnap Miss Guthrie? Now you could say this is a worldwide organization. Well, we're leaping quite a bit. We have no evidence of that either. That is an assumption. We cannot keep assuming and basing our theories and our speculation on speculation. And our speculation and theories have to be based upon some element of fact or truth. If we're speculating on top of speculation, well, we're now next thing you know, it was a UFO that came down and beamed up Scotty, and she's living on Mars right now. I mean, if we really want to go down speculation on speculation, we're going to have an alien theory, okay? It doesn't work. We need to have speculation and theories on real facts. And the real facts are this woman was sleeping in her bed and somebody came into her house in the middle of the night and took her from that bed, but not just took her from that bed, made sure they didn't touch a damn thing in that house and were there for 41 minutes. I don't believe that. I believe there was an element of staging. I believe there was an element of cover up here. We have a broom out in the garage that appeared to have been moved, a cleaning aerosol can that's rolling on the floor. Tommaso was in that garage walking his mother-in-law into the house. Those are what we would determine as trip hazards. And those are things that you would never allow an 84-year-old elderly woman with a lot of pain to be around, is trip hazards. So I am almost confident if those things were moved or in the order that they were when we saw inside that garage, I truly believe Tommaso would have put them in their place so his mother-in-law would not have a trip. One of those was a rolling can. If she would have stepped down on that, she could have broken her hip. And let me tell you something. I don't know if you know this, but most people that are of elderly age, when they break their hip, they usually survive for another 6 months. I don't know what it is. It's a study I did a long time ago, but the majority of people that are of elderly age that break their hip at an elderly advanced age end up living about 6 months after that broke hip, and then they perish. I don't know what it is. So you never want to have anything that can hurt your elderly parents. So I think any adult or even any teenager sees a broom out of place or sees a can rolling all over the garage would pick it up and put it in its place. These things were left there. That tells me, in my opinion, somebody was out there in that garage monkey meffing with something. What? To me, it sounds like possibly items for cleaning. We have a broom moved, and we have an aerosol can roaming about on the floor. So why in the world would somebody be inside there trying to clean up after themselves, being on the property for 41 minutes that we know of? That's what we know of. They could have been there a lot longer that we don't know of. But we've got them clocked at 41 minutes on that property. That is so far out of what we know for a smash and grab ransom abduction than anything that I've ever heard. Usually, when you have an abduction for profit, you're smashing and grabbing. You're going in, getting them, you're throwing the note or leaving something behind, a picture of them, right? A picture of them holding the newspaper with the today's date, you're leaving that behind or something to that effect, okay? So for there be no ransom left at the house, no ransom directly sent to the family, and then the ransom notes coming days later, almost probably after she was already deceased, that sounds like a red herring. So that means there's something else going on here in this case. So what are those other things that are going on here in this case? In my opinion, it wasn't for money. I think the money aspect is throwing us for the loop. I really do. I think we need to remove the possibility of money being the motivation. I think if we replace that with something else, we'll start getting a clearer image, because everybody automatically assumes this has to do with money. I have never assumed that this has anything to do with money. I believe that this is something different. I I don't know, though, right? So you got to take even my opinions with a grain of salt. But again, they are my opinions. But I think we are being entirely clouded by two things: Savannah Guthrie and the money aspect. I think if we remove Savannah Guthrie and remove the money, we might find the motive. I don't think money is the motivation here. And I think that's what's so clever about these ransom notes. Just like in Gannon Stauch, just like they were explaining in Gannon Stauch, right? There was ransom notes in Gannon Stauch. Why did they listen to those ransom notes? Because they were unbelievable. Who ultimately did it? His mother, his stepmother. His stepmother did it. Yet we had ransom notes. So we know that this is going to be, oh, I love it. Well, welcome. I'm glad we're being featured. If you guys haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button. So I think we really need to look at this, and we need to focus on these aspects of the case. But yes, I feel like we're being led astray. I think we spent entirely too much time and too much focus. And I believe when people said the ransom is a distraction, I believe it's just that. It's a distraction, because the ransom makes zero sense in this case. Yeah, we have a wealthy person, but there are so many more wealthy people out there in the Tucson area. As a matter of fact, there's more wealthy people in that very community that they took this lady from. Did you guys hear me? There's even more wealthier people in that specific community that they took Nancy from. People that literally had $30,000 or $70,000 for that matter on site, inside their home. So I think that we need to look at those factors. But again, I have never been on board with the ransoms. We're no longer going to be talking about TMZ ransoms from this point forward. I believe it's a red herring until we have some substance to it, and we have some, I want to hear a law enforcement body come out here and tell us that those ransom notes are legitimate. Then I'll believe it. But until that happens, which I know that will never happen, but again, I know that will most likely never happen, even if they are real as well. If it does have some type of evidentiary value that it could help produce a suspect, maybe law enforcement will come out and tell us that they believe that these ransom notes are real and why they believe they're real. But I don't believe they're real. I believe that they've already attached the fact that they came from overseas, and they'll never be able to find the author of those people, just much like Gannon Stauch. So that's where I'm at with it. I don't believe it. And I think the other misconception is that this is about money. And I think the reason why we think it's about money is because of two aspects, because of Savannah Guthrie and the fact that we have ransom notes. And people always believe that when cases like this happen, it's about money. But think about all the cases we've covered with homicides or people moving. It had zero to do with money. It had to do more so with resentment, or in the case of Rebecca Park, I mean, they were trying to carve out her baby. Right? It had to do with a baby that she was growing. So there's a lot of reasons for people committing homicide or people taking somebody or abducting somebody. But in many of these cases, it rarely has anything to do with money unless you are a thug and on drugs and you're slinging dope like what was her name? Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra from San Antonio, Texas. We don't have cases like that. That was truly over drugs and money. This feels something a little bit different, and I can't shake how different this truly feels, But we do have a scenario here where I don't believe in the ransom. I think a lot of people are trying to show their skill in the area of ransom, and so they're keeping this up and they're bringing all the specialists up, and it's a talking point to have, but I don't believe it. And it's why I keep pushing it and resisting, because I don't believe it. I don't believe in this ransom. I think that this is a lot closer to home. I think that Savannah, Annie, and Cameron know who is the responsible party for this. I think that I know for a fact in my mind that it should be factually known that Miss Guthrie knew who these people were. To what extent? I don't know. But I would be ultra shocked if we end up making an arrest and it's Cameron or Tommaso or Annie. I just don't believe that they're going to be arrested because I don't believe they had any part in this. I just don't. I know that my audience does. I'm not browbeating you. I understand why you feel that it's a viable avenue to go down. So I'm not going to browbeat you over it. I'm not going to be disrespectful over it because I, again, understand why you are looking at this. And in all fairness, if I didn't do the research that I do, I would probably be right there with you. But I do the research. And the fact that Pima County Sheriff has lied, he's a liar, right? He's lied under oath. Recently, he's backtracked a lot of the stuff that he's told us already. So, him clearing them is not really helping or boding in us actually believing that they're cleared either. So that has a spot in it too. Like nobody believes the sheriff. So when he clears people, we're like, okay, this dumbass doesn't know what he's doing. And so it's even making it even more harder to believe that the family's cleared because it came out of Nanos's mouth, which is pretty bad because we should be trusting our sheriff and everything that he says is true. But we've caught him in so many dishonest statements and backtracked statements that we have to question everything he says from this point forward, which is such a shame. But that's kind of where we are. So let me know on the replay crew, if you guys made it this far into the show, please consider hitting that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed yet to the Bullhorn Betty channel, please consider subscribing. We have a lot of different talking points here. I'm a little brash. I'm a little pointed. I don't walk on eggshells. Sometimes I piss a lot of people off, and that's okay. That's our shtick. Right? It's our thing. I feel like if you haven't been offended by Bullhorn Betty, you will be offended. So be prepared because I offend everybody and that's what they like. I don't intentionally offend people, but it is just how I talk. I bring down the hammer. I say it like it is. And some people, it takes them a little while to come down. And, nobody likes to think that they've been living wrong or they've done things wrong or they've been part of the problem instead of the solution. Nobody wants to hear that. Sometimes you got to bring it to them. You got to show them the way. You got to show them the receipts, and then they're like, okay, well, maybe she might be a little right. Maybe we might need to make some corrections here. Maybe we might want to do these things differently here. Maybe we might want to try something a little bit different. Maybe we may want to make this suggestion. Maybe we want to do this. That's what it's really about. It's not really coming down on you. We're all human here. We all make mistakes. It's all about trying to find ways to live in this place safely, but we all have different ways of bringing that safety about. And I think that's where we kind of start butting some heads. But at the end of the day, we do have some things that everybody can unify on, right? We want safety. Safety's got to be a top priority because this world's getting crazier and we're being hunted. We're being hunted. We feel it. Like we feel it. We everywhere, every time we turn around, we hear somebody is attacking somebody. And so we know we're being hunted here in this country. And we want to make sure that we have the safest country possible. And it takes all of us. But at the end of the day, we can fight about our ideology. We can fight about how we think this world could be better. We can fight about what policies are. But unless we have our safety, we're never going to be able to fight for very long. So I think for all of us, I think the number one goal that we should all unite on is public safety. Having public safety, it gives us all the ability to keep fighting another day, whether we agree with people or not. But that's the one thing I think we can all unite on. So no more defunding policies, no more defunding police policies are in our vocabulary, on any of our vocabulary. We got mayhem running our streets. Okay, we got people being bludgeoned for doing their jobs. This idea that we don't need law enforcement, you are in denial. Okay, so let's quit being in denial and realize that the only people that can help us, whether we like it or not, is our law enforcement bodies, and let's start funding our law enforcement again so we don't have more Nancy Guthries across this country. That's step one. Okay, and step two is just hitting the thumbs up button, coming here and finding legitimate content creators that want to tell you guys the truth, one, to have accountability, two, and work to bring brighter days for tomorrow. And I think that that's an important, because a lot of people come here and talk about these cases, but nobody really tries to make a difference. Nobody ever tries to do things. We try to make a difference. We see problems. We're not one of these people that are just going to sit here and complain and complain and complain and complain day in and day out. We're going to sit here and try to find things that are going to bring about reasonable change in our country as well. So hopefully, if that's what you like, please consider subscribing. Please consider supporting. Please consider a number of things and support the creators that are out there doing. That was the hardest thing. When we were out there all the time, out there in the real world, boots on the ground, one of the hardest things is having people on the other end beating everybody up when they're unwilling to be out there in the heat, unwilling to be out there searching, unwilling to be doing anything other than complaining. Don't be complaining at people when you're unwilling to get off your ass and do anything. That's another big point that I have. Okay? If you're willing to get off your ass and do something and you have a complaint, by God, let your complaint be known. But if you're sitting behind a computer in a nice, cool environment while somebody's out there busting their ass and sweating their ass off, keep your mouth shut. Just my suggestion. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Until next time, please be safe, but more importantly, kind to one another. And this is the Bullhorn Betty channel, so you never know what you're going to get. So today was a good day. I believe that we have some good talking points here. I believe that we really need to dive into the legitimacy of these ransom notes. I think they're illegitimate. I think every single one of them is illegitimate. I think it's time for us to move on and start pulling our heads out of the money butt, because I think we're all kind of stuck on money, and I think there's something bigger here. It wouldn't hurt for us to get off the money aspect of it and look at a different angle, something that doesn't have to do with money. Because I really think that because we're focused on money, that's why this case has gone unsolved, right? Maybe it has nothing to do with Cash or Savannah at all. If you guys think of something that has nothing to do with Savannah and has nothing to do with Cash, email that to me, bullhornbetty@gmail.com. All right, guys, rock it out with your coffee beans out. We'll see you soon.